How am I going to get that to work? I don't like that. I do not like that at all. What if instead I do this? Oh, what the hell happened? If anybody's watching right now and you all are in a position to comment in chat, that would be appreciated so I can make sure that chat's working correctly. Why is it doing this? Hey, Gretchen, thank you. I'm here a lot earlier just so I can set everything up. And the last couple of times we did this chat wasn't working correctly. So I wanted to set everything up in advance in case I need to reach out to their tech support. Why is this not working? What if I disable chat overlay? Aha, I see. Okay. That's annoying. What if I do this and then I disable chat overlay again? Oh, no. Why is there so much underutilized space, man? Isn't technology wonderful? Yeah, it is. So Restream's really, really handy. It's really good. It's part of the reason why I renewed my subscription rather than try to mess with everything in OBS. Like if I'm having some sort of stream conversation with people or any sort of panel, it's just really convenient and it's really user friendly. But I don't remember all this underutilized space like 2 or 3 months ago. Like, look at this stuff. Like, you see all this white space around it? I'm shocked. Like right now, you see how I'm in the mini player? Like, what about all this, man? What about all this? What's up with that? I digress. Like I said, folks, I'm 30 minutes early. I'm just here to make sure everything is set up and working properly. The last couple of times we've had like some technical errors, like chat not showing up and other things. How's everybody doing today? Oh, yeah? That good, huh? Let's see what's going on in the wonderful world of Twitter. 6 divorces in one image. Wait a minute. Remove source. Share screen. Share system audio. Share window. Yeah. Okay. So you got Andrew Tate, Elon Musk, Donald Trump. Yay. A 10 to 15 second delay. Well, I can't remember if that's supposed to happen or not. So I'll just quickly ask the IT department, or not IT department, tech support. I'm thinking of my day job. Is there supposed to be any time delay between me and my audience when I'm streaming? A chatter just told me there seems to be a 10 to 15 second delay. Oh, Hosh Jolly. A hemorrhoid on the ass of the American political system is he. Oh, in chat. Yeah. Okay. Well, to clarify, she means the chat. I do, and I can. God, right wing are such douches online. The quartering. Transphobia has never been hotter. Dude, it's a Harry Potter game. It was always going to make gangbusters, okay? This is not, you should not read this as a validation of your transphobic beliefs simply because Hogwarts Legacy sold like gangbusters. It's like Harry Potter, Star Wars, Lord of the Rings. It was always going to make a crap ton of money. But of course, the right is weaponizing the discourse. They're like, see, the fact that it made so much money is proof that transphobia is vogue. Simmer down. Yeah, I hear this. Not Rick Scott. Scott Adams, the Dilbert author, who apparently is like, he's been a right wing nut for years. Apparently, his his legendary Dilbert cartoon strip just got pulled from virtually every newspaper. Don't worry, buddy. I'm sure the New York Post will run it. Can you this? Gretchen, Can you hear this? Can you hear this clip? Can you hear this clip? Interesting. Okay. Let's try again. I clicked share system audio. All right, hang on. Let me do another test. Let me do another test. What about this handsome guy right here? Damn, that guy's good looking. Can you hear him? Ah! Blah, 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 blah. Okay. That's okay. He's just eye candy anyway. Eye kid. Oh, crap, guys. How am I going to make this work? I'm blaming Stacks. You know, before I started doing this crap with Stacks, everything was working perfectly. You know what I'm saying? Like, birds were trilling merrily. You know, colors were brighter. All right, what about this?
Some of you have been asking why I'm not covering the Dominion voting machines lawsuit against Fox involving the unproven claims of election fraud in 2020. And it's absolutely a fair question. I believe I should be covering it. It's a major media story, given my role here at Fox. But the company has decided that as part of the organization being sued, I can't talk about.
We got it, folks. We got it. Okay. Now the question is, how do I... Oh, you punk. See, here's the thing, though. Like, there should be... I had to select that specific tab for audio, and that's the only thing I can share. So now if I want to go back to my other stuff, I've got to basically disable the audio so I can bounce back and forth in between tabs. And then if I want to play audio from a specific tab, I've got to basically stop sharing the screen, start sharing the screen again, and select a different function. That's annoying. The tech support team wants a link to the stream so they can see the lag. Perfect. Let's see. All right, so I'm talking with the tech support team about the 15-second lag. The nag. In the meantime, we're going to bookmark this because this is a biggie. Oh, man. Michael Schellenberger. What a joke. He's the Twitter Files, one of the Twitter Files writers. He's regurgitating right-wing talking points effectively. Dude, I'm getting tired of all this, like, I understand General Flynn blocked you. It's annoying. He's an unpatriotic douche, but you don't have to spam it 7,000 times. On Monday, President Biden made a surprise visit to Ukraine to meet with President Zelensky and show support for the country. Do you approve or disapprove of Biden's visit? Approve 51%, neither approve nor disapprove 17%, disapprove 22%. That's good. Under a quarter, disapprove. That's good. Goes to show that those those Republican contrarians are in the minority. But I wish that approve number was in the 60s. That'd be nice. It'd be nice to see like a decisive majority approve. As it is, a decisive majority either approve or don't care. So it's good news for Biden. But you always want more affirmative than blasé. Pelosi heckled in San Francisco. Can you tell us why we have over 150 billion going to Ukraine when we have homeless on the streets in your own city? We have homeless on the streets in every city, including those run by Republican mayors. We have homeless in every state, including those run by Republican governors. Homeless is a national epidemic. You will not find one state, including Montana. Sorry, I just had a small stroke. Montana, who has a population of 3, they also have homeless people. And by the way, I think foreign aid comprises like 2% of the federal budget. Like it's not like we can't send aid to Ukraine and also help homeless people. So why aren't we helping homeless people more? Well, yes, some Democrats to be sure, but also Republicans attacking the welfare state. Because see, if you help human beings who are brought into this world against their will, what you're doing is you're coddling them. And you're not enabling them to pull themselves up by their bootstraps. And really, isn't that just really the biggest problem? I am, of course, being facetious, but this, of course, this criticism from right-wingers, which is what the quartering is, this is so disingenuous. They don't care about the homeless. They absolutely do not. If they did, they would be pushing for, more sweeping and comprehensive welfare legislation, but they don't. Okay, can I please minimize this? Thank you. Can't wait for this argument by Mehdi Hassan. I'm a big Mehdi Hassan simp. I don't necessarily agree with everything he does. Sometimes I think he's too combative with the Democratic Party in a very partisan conflict where we need to be hyping up Democrats as much as possible. Still criticize them, but like pick our battles, right? Because they're our best shot of defeating Republicans. But generally speaking, I think he's an exceptional debater. He has incisive commentary, and I'm looking forward to this book of his, Win Every Argument, The Art of Debating Persuasion and Argument. Gretchen says, they don't care about humans in general, just corporations. You darn right. You darn right. And by corporations, we don't even mean their employees. We mean the C-suite. Oh, Al Franken. Man, I miss him in the Senate. He was done dirty by the Democrats, I got to say. And goes to show, if you're talking about the chat messages appearing on your overlay, there can be up to 5 seconds delay when the viewer comments or chats on the end platform. And for that platform API to send the same message to Restream and for Restream to process the message, gotcha. So that's normal then. Cool. Yeah, this stuff is funny right here. Can't play the audio without like again disabling this window, and it's just not worth it right now. But like, so Nikki Haley is officially running for president, right? She has officially announced her campaign. She is technically going to be, she technically is a rival for Donald Trump for the 2024 presidency, but she absolutely will not criticize him at all, right? So she's like, hey, I'm running against him, but also like I love everything about him and I wouldn't change anything about him. And I basically echo all his sentiments. So not really doing a good job. Cypher, what's up, baby? Oh, you're on here already, man. You're here. I brought you in.
I can't hear anything. Oh, I'm in.
Yeah. You can't hear anything?
I was muted on my side.
What's up, man?
Hey, what's going on?
Oh, just living the dream. You want to go grab that drink?
Yeah, I'll go drink real quick.
We'll admire your setup behind you. All that artwork. Look at that. In fact, let's maximize. Oh, dude, he's repping House Lannister, man. Look at that. It's a House Lannister chair. And then he's got that looks like the Iron Throne there. He's got a couple of X-Men posters. So this is crowdsourced politics. Let's see here. I need to set up his stuff. Follow Cypher on YouTube. Disable this for a second. Yeah, Cypher's a good dude. He's oh, why did I do that? He's debated a bunch of conservatives. He went up against Rob Noor. He's had conversations with counterpoints. Good guy. Let's do this. Where to go? Where to go? You caffeinated this morning?
I'm getting caffeinated right now.
Cheers, baby. Cheers.
Where are you streaming to? I don't know. Like I've never seen your stuff. We just talked briefly, so
YouTube and Twitch.
All right, I'll pull it up.
I'm mostly doing I mostly do YouTube. Twitch is basically like kind of an afterthought, just because I put out like small video essays and short videos and stuff, so I don't spend quite a bit of time on it. What's your primary platform?
I don't have one, basically. So I started with actually doing an actual podcast, and we were getting like 100 or so listens every episode from our community, and then the community imploded. So then we're like, okay, let's try Twitch, and then we did Twitch until I had to take a break, and then I took a break, and then my community imploded.
Oh wow,
how's it going, guys?
What's up, Stax?
Nothing much.
Stax,
should I go? Go ahead.
I was gonna say, Stax. This is Cypher, aka Crowdsourced Politics. And Crowdsourced Politics, aka Cypher. This is Stax.
Hey, Stax.
How's it going, guys?
How you going?
Doing well. What's up, Cypher?
Just about to ask if I should go to my car and get my glasses. We can be three white guys with glasses on a podcast.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Or we can just push
astigmatism here.
We can just push Josiah right out of the conversation too. I'll just take my glasses off.
Like watch this, like right here.
Oh no!
Yeah, exactly. Now it's just us.
It improved dramatically.
Exactly.
Let's see here. So I want to make sure I got everything set up. So we got follow Stax on TikTok. We got follow Stax on Twitch. Staxioms on YouTube.
No, it's not. It's not. I took out the 6929. We're good now.
Oh, that's good.
I'm gonna remove that.
And then, hang on 1 second.
Yeah, it turns out when you're all you have to do is be vaguely competent at YouTube sometimes.
Well, that's always been your downfall, really.
I know it has
Vague
been.
competence.
Exactly.
You're here basically for eye candy, and that's about it.
And I appreciate you having me on.
Listen, I mean, again, it improves like the visual quality of the stream.
Despite my camera being way worse than yours.
Oh well, listen, who's competing, right?
You know you can fix that just by using your phone.
Fix like the camera quality. Just go off my phone.
Yeah.
He actually has a Nokia flip phone. That's the thing.
Yeah, it's the big problem.
Yeah,
it's just it barely has a camera on it. It doesn't even have like a touchscreen.
And that's purely
fair
for
enough.
his erotic picture taking. Like that's
it's
cases.
a lot of.
I mean,
there's
there
a lot
is a
more of a
market for that,
demand.
so.
There's a demand for blurry, very blurry, nasty looking dick pics.
That's why
you would think.
Listen, that's why the other like that. So Cypher and I were talking about like what platforms we're on primarily, and I was saying like I stick mostly with YouTube, and he says that basically he's homeless right now in terms of social media. He doesn't really have a dedicated platform if he's going to be mostly on Twitch or YouTube. And you, Stax, are mostly on OF. You know, you're on,
yeah.
It's kind of beautiful. It's you'd be surprised by because the reason why is I was on TikTok for a little while, and those videos did great, but almost no money. And then you go to OF and you're just living the dream, honestly. Just
raking it in.
Yeah.
Painting toes.
It feels great.
I'm telling you, Cypher, you have seen his feet. You would if he showed his feet right now, you would recognize them so far. Oh, Stax, what's up, man? Yeah.
You too can become an OnlyFans millionaire if you just put up feet pics.
That's right.
It's not that hard.
No, that's actually the slogan of his channel. It's not that hard. So,
yo, nice.
Yeah. So, kind of to recap here before we get into it, you know, obviously this is the first time all three of us have been on stream together. Stax and I, obviously, we've collaborated off and on here on YouTube and Twitch. Like we were trying to set up like a weekly stream where we would either like recap the political events of the week or have debates or do debate or conversation reviews. And then, of course, we ran into the holidays, and Stax has, you know, a life with loved ones, and he enjoys spending time with family. And so, like, trying to collaborate was really difficult. But we're hopefully trying to do this again, where like every Sunday at noon, unless like, you know, again, he's got to spend time with family.
Something like that.
But Cypher and I, you and I have interacted a bit in like DMs and like, you know, following each other on Twitter. You and Stax obviously have virtually no interaction. So I think it might be good is if we all kind of clarify overall, like what we do in terms of our content creation and where we stand politically. So if you don't mind, Cypher, I'd like you to jump in and kind of explain what you do and your background and all that stuff.
Yeah, so a little bit about myself. I guess in this space, everybody talks about what degrees they have. So I have a degree in criminal justice and political science. Was going to be a lawyer at one point. That fell off. So I do data science in my day-to-day for data science, data analytics in my day-to-day. So I'm very data-driven, very criminal justice and education-driven. That's where I like to focus on policy stuff. As far as like streaming or whatever, I do a weekly news show. You could kind of think of it as cross between like maybe the Diane Reen show, like a Friday news roundup kind of thing, and whatever you would see typically on YouTube or Twitch. So that's basically what we do. We just chop that up, post up throughout the week before leading up to the show for on YouTube, and then just do it again. And I try to do debates whenever possible. Should be on Wick's show this coming week, so that'll be good.
Oh, that's good. I actually sent a message to Wick. So Wick had been kind enough to try to get me on his show towards the end of last year, but I was like trying to move away from debates and more like just putting videos out constantly. And I messaged him recently, like, okay, now that I've got a routine for my channel, I'm going to start getting back into purposeful debates. Stax is kind of in the same boat. I think he's going to be getting on Wick's channel sometime soon. What's the topic for this coming week?
Since he hasn't announced yet, I'm not comfortable also announcing, but it
Oh,
should
got
be
you.
something
That's fine.
pretty. Yeah. It should be something pretty good. I'm gonna take the position that I don't give a fuck in the debate, but I'll be able to do nuance. So it's just one of those things.
Gotcha. As far as your political beliefs are concerned, how would you describe like your political ideology or your political beliefs?
I would say that I am basically lib left, more or less on that. And my camera's jacked up, so I'm moving it around really quick.
That's okay.
But more or less lib left. Soc Dem social democracy is based. But you know, when it comes to world politics and when it comes to foreign affairs, maybe we need a little bit of the big stick. So it's a little cross between that. You know,
Are you
we're not
hawkish?
Sweden.
Are you
We're
hawkish?
not Sweden. Compared in this space, yes, but
Gotcha.
not outside of this space. No, I'm not a neocon. I don't particularly believe in American exceptionalism. I believe that America's just got the biggest, baddest military on the face of the planet, and morally speaking, sometimes we have to use it. So,
Gotcha.
but the Iraq War was shit. We fucked up in Syria by listening to the French. We're doing great things with Ukraine right now. We did great things in the 90s. Absent that, it's a little hit or miss. So.
Okay. Stax, do you have any questions for Cypher
No,
about his?
I already feel like I'm gonna get along. I take a very similar stance. My specific route that I like to take is usually like housing policy. I talk a lot about, but broadly speaking, I'm very much a social democrat. Very much interested in. I take a very similar approach to foreign policy, which I don't think me and Josiah really talk about. But I am in favor of some monopoly on violence and some, like broadly speaking, globally, some sort of broad political apparatus to make sure that people don't just annex foreign countries, which I'm grateful that America has been able to take the role in terms of the Ukraine and Russia conflict. And so I don't know. Yeah, I feel like I agree for the large majority of the time.
Well, I think you
Cypher,
should
it
clarify
sounds like.
a couple of things,
Yeah.
Stax, because you said like you're interested in housing policy. Now, I know like some people would assume that you want to, you know, revamp housing policy and whatever, but I know that you happen to be pro-homeless. So can you clarify?
It's kind of a wild position. So yeah, the idea is why do homeless need a home? Really, is my housing policy. Like,
That's right.
I feel like they kind of have it good living in America.
Right.
They can starve on the streets and they should be grateful to be American.
Right.
That's
Homeless people in America are so privileged because
they are
exposed to the elements under an American sky, right?
Call me when you have when you understand how hard it is to be a white man in this country. All right?
That's the Cypher.
And
Those are the bold stances of. I just want you to understand when he says like he's really big on housing policy. I don't want you to think that he takes a progressive view at all.
Yeah.
Well,
100%.
guys, we just can't give people homes.
No,
like, we can't just do that. Where would all the money go if we just gave people homes?
Right.
Find out more time on News at 11 with Tucker Carlson.
That's right.
Nice.
Yeah.
I can almost do his voice.
Stax put out a really good YouTube video where because he's like, I'm gonna out him here. He's kind of like a Magic the Gathering geek. And
true. You could tell by the posters in the back. Yeah, they're Magic the Gathering art. Yeah.
And he put out this really good video using Magic the Gathering as kind of like a lens of analysis for housing policy. And I'll send you a link. You should check it out. It's really good. Oh, look at that, man. He's got some geekery stuff in the background.
I love it. I don't know what half of the things are. I think that's Zelda in the...
He's got House Lannister.
Yeah, you saw my shirt. Yeah. Sorry. My camera's bugging me. So
no, it's okay, man. I get it. So that's good. Well, as far as like my political beliefs, both of you know more about mine than you knew about each other's. But I would consider myself also a social democrat, but I would say like my first instinct is first and foremost, I am anti-Republican. I'm anti-GOP. So anything, I think the Republican Party is the single greatest political threat to the present and future of the United States. I think that is an irrefutable fact.
You could even say the world legitimately.
100%.
Their take on climate change.
And so I would back probably anybody in the political discourse or in the political arena to keep Republicans out of power. So if that's Biden, if it's Bernie, if it's Pete Buttigieg, if it's Elizabeth Warren, if it's Marianne Williamson, I don't care. Now, we can criticize the left from the left.
The orb flow.
Yes, yes. We can criticize the left from the left, but no false equivalences. No, well, kind of both sides. No. Republicans are infinitely worse on every level, and that is my thesis. So that's where I stand.
Fair enough.
Yeah. So I've got some ideas as far as like topics that we could discuss, because it's been like a fairly active news cycle, but like, and we mentioned some of it in DMs, but was there anything that jumped out at you all that you wanted
I personally have been losing my mind about the East Palestine train derailment.
Sure.
But I think I'm going to take a really contrary position on it.
Of course. That's the other thing.
Because
he's such a contrarian.
I've been kind of losing my shit about how dramatic everyone has made the incident, and I don't know if I understand why. And I've seen a lot of conspiracy theories floating around about the incident. I'm gonna take that position, and I'm excited to. And I feel like
Wait, are you pro derailment? So why don't you clarify? Like,
I feel like, okay, so here's my perspective of the incident.
Oh, hang on, Stax. I'm sorry. Can you also add context here, because they do need to know this kind of hits home for you because you're such a train simp. Like you're
I am.
Yeah. So can you set the stage? Yeah.
I love trains. I love just public transportation is, like, to me, one of the greatest things that this country could really fight for. But here's my perspective on it. To me, what happened in East Palestine is I was reading a bunch of articles, and what it seems like had happened is there was a derailment. There was a bunch of hazardous chemicals that got leaked. The EPA immediately evacuated almost the entire city. They cleaned up the chemicals. They dammed the river. They made sure that there wasn't anything. They went through all of the houses to make sure that there wasn't any like high hazardous. I forget that it was like called vinyl chloride, I think, was the specific chemical. They made sure that there wasn't any high toxins in any of the houses. They went through the EPA. They went through the Ohio agency. They went through Norfolk Southern's like own internal. They did their own studies as well, and no one could find really any more of the hazardous chemicals in the air, soil, or water. And it sounds like, oh, hey, let's make sure to prevent this again. But instead, everyone seems to be freaking out, saying that this is basically going to kill. This is a mini Chernobyl, and everyone is just going to die in this tiny little town. And I'm like, hey, it looks safe, actually, from everyone's perspective. And I wish we talked about regulatory measures to make sure that this doesn't happen again, instead of fear mongering about this little city who seems to be okay, actually. And that's my hot take. I'm already excited for people to disagree.
Yeah, so I'm going to jump in on that. So I thought the same thing similarly to you, but I will say that we actually don't know if the water is clean yet. We don't know how much chemical exposure most of the people actually had been exposed to. And of course, there's that viral video of the guy that had to go back to get the medicine from his grandmother. And he said he broke out in hives and like all this stuff. There's fish that just giant fish deaths happened. That's all over the thing. They're reporting fish death and also the chemicals going over from East Palestine towards, I want to say, Pennsylvania. So the Pennsylvania state government is getting involved in this as well. Mm-hmm. On top of that, you didn't have you didn't have any major person make any like concrete things are going well. We're doing X. We're taking them to task. You didn't have the politics being played up on this. So optically speaking, it looked like nothing was happening. And because of the optics, people thought nothing was being done. And then all those videos went viral. So people were like, oh, why isn't this a bigger story? They're trying to bury it. So I think that's more along the lines of where things are. But there hasn't been major death yet. The air quality appears to be okay. I'm going to say okay because we can't know 100% for, probably a couple of months. Like it's going to come up clean, but how much of that was actually breathed in, you don't know. And people just don't trust the EPA and really the government on this much at all because
I mean, I understand that, but when there's 3 different government agencies and 4 different companies who are like with all competing interests. Like the EPA wants to nab Norfolk Southern so much on this right now to make sure that they pay their
they
share.
issued, the EPA administrator issued a flat out order that Norfolk Southern will be forced to pay for the cleanup. I actually like the way he phrased it. He's like, I'm not making a request, I'm issuing a directive. They will do it. I love, as a staunch sock dem, I love the big fat phallus of the federal government cracking down on a delinquent company. I'm serious. Like,
no, I'm being serious too. That's fantastic.
Like, I love that. I love, especially, having grown up in a red state and being surrounded by like people who espouse this idea of laissez-faire capitalism. Just let businesses in the private sector do whatever they want. They'll self-police, they'll self-correct. Government just gets in the way. I love when government reasserts its dominance. Like, listen, we're bigger, badder, and better than you, and you will do what we say. I love that. And I'm not kidding. Like, I saw that and I'm like, I love that energy. So anyway.
Yeah, 100%. And I'm in favor of Norfolk Southern paying any bill that needs to be paid, right? If you are not being careful with your transportation of hazardous chemicals, you need to be able to pay the risk that happens once that actually gets infected. Once that possibly derails, right? I guess my perspective on it, I agree that Pete Buttigieg, the Secretary of Transportation, and Biden, and not a lot of politicians really commented on this. I saw like one tweet from a congressperson, but the EPA, which is a part of the government too, was there the day of. Like, the day that it happened, they started evacuating the city. And I don't know why it's necessary, considering there's like 1,000 derailments every single day, or sorry, every single year. 1,000 derailments every single year.
It's like, damn.
No, not every day. 1,000 derailments every single year. Why they should comment on the EPA doing their job, evacuating the city. And it doesn't seem like there's cause for alarm, because I understand that we don't yet know if things are safe, but I don't have any fear as to why it would be, considering we've done enough testing. And really, the fish that you mentioned weren't evacuated, right? Like,
no, I gotcha.
While they were doing those controlled burns, the chickens weren't evacuated, the fish weren't evacuated. I would expect them to get sick. But when we evacuate the people, then take care of the chemicals while it's being hazardous, while we're doing the controlled burns, and then bring the people back, I'm not that concerned. And the thing about the hives, I've seen the same thing about vaccines, where people are like, oh, I got hives right after the vaccine, therefore it's safe. I'm not going to freak out about a city until I see concrete reasons as to why I should be concerned, if that makes sense.
No, it makes total sense, but we're also all Democrats and we trust the government. So
no, fair. But like, I don't want to see Democrats lean into this fear mongering, because I've seen a lot of.
You don't have to lean into the finger. So the people that are leaning into the fear mongering, in my opinion, are mostly, when we're talking about liberal lefties, are mostly lefties. They're leaning into it because they want the government to come down harder. They want Norfolk Southern to basically be sued to bankruptcy, because this isn't like the first time it happened, right? Mm-hmm. And so they're leaning into it because they want the government to have more power, more control, somewhat rightfully so. But also, when you think about it, it's like, nah, they kind of want revenge to a degree. And hey, I'm all good for revenge. That's fine. On the right side of it, it's like, this is an easy, going to take it off of we're going to take the Democrats' scalp on this, because they're leaving it up for the optics game. Why leave it up for the optics game just because you think people should understand that the government's doing its job? No one understands the government's doing its job. The last 60 years have all been propaganda saying the government doesn't do shit for you and makes stuff worse. So you have to come out and say, we are doing this. We're holding people accountable. We're going to have our top guys on it. Pete Buttigieg is there right now. He's drinking the fucking water. Okay. That's what we're having. Right? But I'm just saying, like,
he's showering. He's like, guys, I'm going to publicly shower in East Palestine water to show you everything's fine. Ignore the third arm growing out of my torso.
I'll agree that he or Biden probably should have been there. And I don't know. I don't know how. Well, here's the question. Should we give into basically whatever people is worried about, even if everything seems fine?
I think that's a legitimate question. I want to jump in here for a couple of things here, for the sake of people who are our commanding audience of 6 people and people who will eventually watch the VODs.
Okay.
Just a couple of quick facts. So number one, Stax is right. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of train derailments every year. Okay.
Yeah.
Number two, FEMA was on site within 2 hours of the derailment. Okay. Excuse me, not FEMA, the EPA.
EPA. Yeah.
FEMA can't intervene even if they wanted to lend assistance. FEMA cannot intervene until the governor of the particular state requests federal assistance, which Governor DeWine did not for days. President Biden did reach out to Governor DeWine within hours and said, look, whatever you need. And Governor DeWine at a press conference said, look, yeah, I heard from the president. He said, whatever you need. I haven't called him back, but I will not hesitate to do so if I think that it's merited. Okay. Number five, I can't remember what fact check we're on now, as far as like the Secretary of Transportation, Elaine Chao, who was the Secretary of Transportation under President Trump, there were train derailments under the Trump administration with fatalities, and she never showed up. Right.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I'm not attacking you, Cypher. I'm just saying.
No, I know.
Because I agree there's an optics game here, and I want to get to that. But I also, if there's any conservative or moderate who will watch this, because I've done a couple of shorts and stuff about this as well, and I get a lot of right-wing trolls and moderates saying, well, why didn't Pete show up? If we're just talking about the facts, I don't want to hear shit from a right-winger on that subject unless they're also asking the same question, why didn't Elaine Chao do this? I can't stand the double standard, and I want to attack it any chance I get. So it is unusual for a Secretary of Transportation to show up to a train derailment. Yeah. Number one. Number two, especially one without a fatality. Mm-hmm. And then the other thing I'll point out is, broadly speaking, to me, this is an indictment of conservative philosophy and Republican politics in general. Yes, because the ethos of deregulation falls squarely, like 90% of that belongs to the Republican Party. And then you have 10% of like conservative or corporate Democrats who are also lobbied and want to throw bones to the rail industry. But deregulation is solidly a conservative ethic and a Republican policy point. And it is deregulation and weak regulation that caused this. So people point out that, there was an Obama era policy that would have mandated that rail companies upgrade their brake systems to electronic brakes. Then people say, well, that wouldn't have stopped the East Palestine derailment because it wasn't categorized as a high hazard load. But that's also because of weak regulation, courtesy of Republican politics. So at the end of the day, the East Palestine situation is further proof that the Republican Party, number one, their ethics suck. Conservative values with this respect suck. And the bet, if you want to avoid shit like this in the future, you need to elect more Democrats. So now that I've added that, just that throughout those quick facts,
the classic Josiah, hey, I just need to pivot this back into electing more Democrats, which is fair. I'm appreciative that you're there to remind us where.
Right. But the last thing I'll say to kind of segue it back into the conversation you two were having, I am sympathetic to Cypher's position here, where it's like, I mean, obviously, Stax, fundamentally, I agree with you. Like, I do not want to play the Republican or right-wing framing on this issue because it's so asymmetrical. It's so disingenuous. But to Cypher's point, that's for one reason or another, that is how it was teed up, either because they have a better media apparatus, either because they seize the initiative. But it's true. Even as somebody who follows politics, it seemed like President Biden and Secretary Buttigieg were awfully quiet on this subject. And to Cypher's point, facts don't speak for themselves, which kills me about Democrats. Democrats think like, hey, FEMA was on site in 2 hours, or not FEMA, the EPA was on site in 2 hours, baby. That's all that matters. No. You have to shout that from the rooftops. That has to be spam.
Yeah, there should have been a press conference as soon as they hit not necessarily as soon as they hit the ground. They got to get stuff situated first, right? But that day one, maybe day two, press conference. The guy that the EPA people on site saying X, Y, and Z happened. We're going to hold them accountable. We're issuing an order right now. In that moment, say, this is the order that we're issuing, and have it drawn up and sent. Like, that's what should have happened. And it would have done so much to alleviate the fears of people of East Palestine, and also just completely taken the wind out of the sails from Republicans, and it would have seized the initiative.
I agree with this. I do agree that politicians absolutely should have been a little bit more vocal about this issue. I guess my question is, What's that pizza place that QAnon was obsessed with in New York or whatever? They
Cosmic
got shut up on?
Pizza.
Cosmic
I think
Pizza.
I
Okay.
think it was Cosmic Pizza.
Okay. Cosmic Pizza.
Cosmic Ping Pong Pizza.
Should the DOJ show up to Cosmic Pizza and order I don't know, just start go to
Order a
Cosmic
pizza?
No.
But I guess my question is how much should we give into the clamor and conspiracy theories of kind of crazy people online and put a lot of strength in those names? I don't know why Biden should show up to East Palestine, and I think that's what a lot.
Well, he has to now.
Yeah, but does he?
Yes, because Trump did.
But I don't understand why. Trump's gonna show up to Cosmic Pizza because that's his fucking fringe conspiracy theorist, tiny little brain. And I wonder if we should give into that and say, yeah, maybe there is something going on here. You're lending credibility to a conspiracy theory, in my opinion.
No, so I would agree with you to be clear, it's not Cosmic, it's Comet Ping Pong Pizza. That's what it is.
You're the one who said Cosmic.
I know. I said I wanted to clarify I wanted to say what the actual thing is.
There's a Cosmic Pizza in New York City that's going out of business right now. Cypher's like,
all
Cosmic
of our
Pizza.
6 viewers are like,
that's right. Hey, 8 now.
Cosmic
Stop
Pizza
it. 8.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
All right, go ahead.
But
Sorry
no, it's all good. It's all good. So when I say what I'm saying, why I'm saying what I'm saying is not because of the conspiracy theories. Fuck the conspiracy theories. It's because it would have been politically advantageous to do this, both from hey, we actually care about the people in Ohio. Ohio is still a big state, even though it's solidly Republican. Showing that you care can chip away at that. Okay, so that's first point. The second point is that from a legal and a philosophical standpoint, when it comes to regulations, it shows that we're actually doing the things that we're saying that we're going to do and bring it to the forefront. That way you have that political weapon to help to bash Republicans over the head with.
I feel like I could say the same exact thing about Comet Pizza.
No, you can't, because Comet Pizza is strictly a conspiracy theory. We're talking before the conspiracy theories happened here with the train derailment. We're talking day 2, maybe 3 of when the train happened, and before the right wingers came around and be like, "What is going on? Why are we experiencing all these attacks?" Didn't happen right away.
I'm gonna call out the left so hard because I think this is why it's frustrating me so much. Is because all of these conspiracy theories seem to be stemming almost strictly from environmentalists who are saying, see, this is what happens if you don't grant the rail workers the union. See, this is what happens with capitalism in general.
That's true.
Yeah, no, it's not, because 1,000 derailments happen every time, regardless of whether or not a strike is happening. And blaming this specific derailment on one union that optically passed is ridiculous.
Optically speaking, that is good for them to do. Just like optically speaking, it's good for Republicans.
Optically speaking, it's good to basically fearmonger in order to get the right policies passed.
Yeah. Objectively true.
I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that.
But we have to talk about what conspiracy theories we're talking about. Okay. So yes, more than likely, the derailment of this train wouldn't have been stopped by that electronic braking, right? So we can say probably wouldn't happen. Maybe it would have helped. We don't know. There's a video floating around.
To be clear, as far as I know, the only reason it wouldn't have helped is because it just would not have qualified for that particular train because it wasn't categorized as a high hazard load.
So even if it was
categorized, I agree, right?
It should be. I think all trains should have this braking system. Right? Who cares?
Right.
All the trains, put this on all the trains. It's going to cost them $1 billion. They get $5 billion in revenue every year. Fuck them. This is not. We need to stop saying, "Oh my God, profit margin's only 2%. 2% of what? 2% of what?
Right.
Okay, you don't need all this fucking money. Shut up."
I agree.
But when we're talking about the conspiracy theories, there's 2 different ones kind of going on right now. So there's the conspiracy theory on the left, what you were talking about, Stax.
Sticks is his Stixioms.
I like it.
Stixiax. Yeah.
But you're talking about where it's environmentalists saying, "Oh, we need all this stuff." The union people playing up all this crap, right? Whereas on the right wing, The conspiracy theory is that we're actually under attack because we destroyed the Chinese spy balloons, and there's a sleeper cell going around causing all this damage in infrastructure.
I'm not disagreeing. I'm not disagreeing that the right isn't worse. Okay.
It's not that it's not worse. We're not giving credence by what I'm saying. We're not giving credence to either of those. We're saying we're going to hold accountable the company that caused this to happen, and we're going to make it sure that you understand that this is how government is supposed to work. Yeah, so you actually stop both conspiracy theories by going in and seizing the objective.
But I guess what I'm saying is, if I'm seeing a bunch of conspiracy and when I want to call some people out here, because I have seen some deranged opinions.
He's about to spill the tea. This is who I'm referring to. He's about to read the receipts.
I've seen some fucking crazy shit on this East Palestine incident. One, they show pictures of controlled burns and they say this is going to infect all of Ohio and this is because of capitalism. Or something on the other side where I saw on Reddit, there was like this massive billowing pillar of like black smoke decrepitly like crawling from mountains, and everyone's like,
where Mitch McConnell enters the congressional building.
Yeah, they're like, this is East Palestine. This is East Palestine. I did a reverse image search. It's not. It's a volcano in Tonga. Okay, and they're like this is going to destroy the environment, and this is why we can't have good things because we didn't care about the environment.
Yeah, fuck those people.
And well, I guess that's what makes me lose my mind. I guess, and it infuriates me so much because I feel like that is what's giving so much credence to this one incident, is all these conspiracy theorists saying, hey, it's so much worse than it looks. Hey, we shouldn't trust the government. And I don't know if it's good for Biden or Pete Buttigieg to lean into this deranged conspiracy and go there and say, hey, it's okay. Because the facts support us.
Let me see if I can coalition build here and bridge the gap. And Cypher, I don't want to misrepresent you, but it seems to me what you're saying is the reason that the government should have taken a stronger optical stance or a more affirmative position from the beginning is because, unlike Pizzagate, the train derailment in East Palestine actually happened. It was a thing that occurred, right? Like it had there was an event that was a matter of fact, and it was going to become national news regardless if there was a conspiracy theory or not.
I don't know if it was going to become national news because 1,000 of these train derailments happen all the time. There wasn't even a fatality. Why would anyone talk about this?
Because where it happened, the right wing was going to play this up as soon as nobody in the government did anything like that they would deem valuable. They would have played it up, and it would have taken over right wing.
I don't understand this idea 100%. That the government didn't do anything. Like they took care of the situation immediately.
Go ahead. Pop.
Well, so I think so. I don't know enough about the thousands of train derailments which occur. I know that they do occur. I know that it's a regular occurrence. I don't know what distinguished this one in terms of like its media profile, other than perhaps just the scale of it. I don't know if we see in other train derailments where there are explosions or controlled venting or whatnot, if it's just collapsing.
It's the
cars.
Giant plume of smoke,
right?
Man.
So I feel like
there wouldn't.
I feel like some of it
needed to do a controlled burn of the vinyl chloride, and that doesn't get transported.
I feel like some of it lent itself well to a high media profile, but maybe there was a Streisand effect involved as well. I don't know, but anyway, that there was an underlying fact of the matter. So whereas it would have been inappropriate and counterproductive to send the Justice Department to Comet Ping Pong Ball Pizza, right, over a legitimate nothing burger, there wasn't. The East Palestine situation is not a nothing burger. Now it's being blown wildly out of proportion, but a train derailment did occur. It's billowing, smoke and like all this. So I think that that's one difference where government presence and government optics were relevant and not in the other case.
I'll concede that there should be some government intervention, while with Comet Pizza, there should be literally zero.
Now, correct. So the other thing I would say, and I think we all agree, I think a lot of this could have been averted. I mean, the government response was I don't want to say proactive, but it was quick. It was expedient. It was professional. The problem is knowing that how Republican bad faith media operatives work and trying to weaponize these situations. I feel like Democrats and the federal government should have done a better job, and they always do a relatively poor job at this, of selling the facts. The facts don't speak for themselves. A lot of people don't know that the EPA was there on site within 2 hours. A lot of people don't know, a lot of people don't know that the controlled venting, like you hear a lot of people bitching about the controlled venting. That wasn't a decision made by the EPA or any federal authority. It was made by the fire chief at East Palestine. He made the decision in consultation with various other like people in Pennsylvania, Ohio, and governors. He made the decision to initiate the controlled venting, right? So per usual, we are just not aggressive on the facts. Now, to your point, the last thing I'll say to your point, Stax, I also understand. I don't know where I fall on whether or not President Biden should visit East Palestine. Secretary Buttigieg has, right? I don't know where I fall on this. I understand. I'm sympathetic where Cypher's coming from. Like, well, Donald Trump already has. So that's going to be weaponized. But I also understand where your point is. Joe Biden is the sitting president of the United States. He should be above Donald Trump in the sense, like, I'm not going to let you lead me by the nose. I don't know if I think it could set a dangerous precedent, the idea that basically Biden has to follow Trump wherever Trump goes to do damage control. So to your point, I think the president, as shitty as this sounds, he is above this situation. He is above the pay grade of an East Palestine train derailment. Secretary Buttigieg, as far as I'm concerned, is where the buck stops. Yeah, and now it falls on Buttigieg, the EPA administrators, and stuff like that to do their job, as well as Democratic spokespeople in the media. Yeah. So anyway, go ahead.
What I'll say is, to your point about not a lot of people know that the EPA was there within 2 days.
2 hours.
Sorry. Yes, 2 hours. Yeah. I misspeak all the time. I'm sorry. 2 hours. I read that in every single news article that I picked up on this. Like,
yeah, but you read it.
No, that's my point. Is like, I am so infuriated at like this idea. I don't know if I believe if Pete Buttigieg or Joe Biden made a comment on this that anything would change, because every single news outlet that I read wrote the exact same thing. Wrote, hey, this is fine. They tested for it. Everything seems fine. Yeah, this is an issue for sure, but there are 0 fatalities. The EPA,
but they bury the lead
within 2 days.
You read it.
2 hours.
Who reads the news?
No, but that's my point. I'm frustrated with the people. I'm not frustrated with the government. And I'm saying the people don't listen to the government. I don't agree with this buck on Joe Biden or Pete Buttigieg not making a comment, because I don't feel like the people would listen anyway, because they didn't even fucking listen to CNN.
Because it was written about. It wasn't on it. The story didn't become a story for news or for TV or whatever, cable streaming, whatever the fuck we call it now these days. It didn't become a story for a week, maybe a week and a half. Okay,
at least on mainstream channels, I think.
Yes, in mainstream. Yes. Mainstream channels. This was being covered by people like the Rational National and like fucking Vosh, like a bunch of other people covered this shit, right? And sure, we're all political heads that are weirdos, so we knew all this, but the average person doesn't watch any of those channels. They might catch breaking points in Joe Rogan every once in a while. They're getting their news from ABC News at 6 o'clock at night, or catching blips of it through Facebook. So when we live in a media environment where you have to actually control the narrative as soon as it happens. And the best way to do that is to have a flood of people just saying the same thing over and over again. The easiest way for the government to do that is going on all the major news shows, all the major talk shows, every single Sunday show, and saying, we are holding Norfolk Southern accountable. We are testing every day, and just do it on every single show. A media blitz for a week, a strict week. And then once you do that, everybody's like, oh, the people will be like, oh, the government is actually trying to address the situation.
I personally feel like that's such a supreme waste of time for the government when everything went right already. If that makes sense. I know. Like they did all of the things that they needed to do. And that's what infuriates me the most about this situation, is like, why are we having a fucking media blitz on this for a week?
You have every right. I'm with you. You have every right. This is something that we probably all, to one extent or another, feel, because and again, I don't want to say, I'm not committing to the position that Democrats do everything right. They obviously don't, right? They make mistakes, but this is the burden of being a leftist in America. And by when I mean leftist, the way I use it is anything that isn't conservative. So if you're a liberal, neoliberal, progressive, social democrat, democratic socialist, socialist, communist, the broad umbrella term, I'm calling it the left. Okay.
Sure.
Hey man, I don't like being associated with those degenerate tankies. Okay,
Yeah.
so
Well,
I'm gonna have.
that's why I said so I'll go as far as communist,
Unironically.
and that I struggle with that one, but definitely not like Stalinist tanky. We
Yeah,
kinda
Marxist
excise that.
I'm kidding.
Yeah, but to your point, but so
I'm not.
this is the well, again, you've already taken a strong pro homeless stance and pro.
Yeah, exactly.
So he's the Stalinist simp on the.
Yeah,
the,
that's why I hate
channel.
communism. Not because it works, but not because it doesn't work, but because it does work and it puts houses to the homeless.
That's
I'm like,
right.
fuck this system.
So that to me, this is endemic. This is emblematic of the struggle that we have on the left, because I don't know if it'll ever get to the point where the asymmetry is perfectly balanced. I do think that we could do a lot better at reducing it. But to your point, Stax, the sad truth of this is that, relatively speaking, the federal government was firing, as far as we know, on all cylinders on this. They were there within 2 hours.
Yeah.
President Biden and Secretary Buttigieg reached out. The EPA has said that Norfolk Southern will foot the bill on this, blah, 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 all these things. And yet that's being lost in the noise. And I also understand but see, to me, this is like where there's a salesmanship in politics that I think Democrats struggle with so often. I actually heard, I can't remember who it was, but I remember during 2020, it may have been Joe Biden when he was running as for president as a candidate, where he was like, my record speaks for itself, or the facts speak for themselves. And I wanted to throw something at the TV because no, facts don't speak for themselves. That's the problem. Democrats really struggle with this idea, like the economy. You and I talk about this all the time.
Yeah.
Democrats, if you look at every metric, the economy performs better when Democrats are in power.
But that's not what gets sold.
But it's not. Republicans are able to pitch this as that they're the party of fiscal responsibility and economic prosperity, when it's not true. Far more jobs are created under Democrats. Real GDP growth, annualized stock returns, every metric you want performs better when Democrats are in power. But Democrats are like, well, the facts speak for themselves and we don't have to talk about it. It's like, no, bro, you got to sell it. So I am sympathetic to Cypher's position, where it's like, okay, even if it's just for a short amount of time, we have to crush this thing in its crib. We have to sell it. It sucks that we even have to do this, that we don't get the benefit of the doubt at all. But to his point, this is also everybody reaping the harvest of 30 or 40 years of Republicans saying the government is the problem. Government doesn't get the benefit of the doubt to the American people. I think even very often on the left. So we have almost like an uphill battle to climb. And so yeah, I don't know if there's a perfect solution here. I don't think there is. I think a lot of it comes down to instincts and inference and iteration and trial and error. But looking back on it, it does seem like some prominent spokesperson of the government, be it Karine Jean-Pierre, be it Secretary Buttigieg, be it whoever.
It could have even been a congressman.
Right.
Like, as a pick representative.
A congressman did tweet about this, by the way.
Yeah, I know.
But
I mean,
tweets are just tweets, but like, I know.
But it should have been like all 50 fucking members of the Democratic Senate, and however many 200 and like everybody, Hakeem Jeffries.
I think my big problem with it is, one, almost all the discourse about it was saying this is the greatest environmental incident that has ever happened in the last century. And you might say, oh, those are fringe crazies. That was Congressman Bowman. That was his tweet. Yeah. Is that this is the most extensive environmental crisis we've ever had. And I'm
it
like,
might not be.
Can we all fucking chill for half of a second? Do you know how many people die constantly from environmental issues? Like, why are we talking about some fucking train that fell over and then immediately gotten taken care of and no one died? Like, I don't get it. Like, I feel like I've been racking my brains as to like why everyone seems to be freaking the fuck out about this situation. And honestly, it kind of
go ahead. Finish. No, finish.
It feels like it's environmentalists who kind of want to fearmonger in order to get the right policies done. And that's what infuriates me about this situation, because the facts are on our side. They don't speak for themselves, but we have so many other things that we can point to that are actually fucking people over. Why are we talking about some stupid train derailment that the government immediately took care of?
So part of that can be explained by the fact that where this train derailed impacts the fresh water supply of tens of millions of people.
Yes, but 3 companies that take care of that water have all tested it and have said that there is no issue. And I understand.
But
I understand.
No one trusts that because of the Flint thing, because everybody did the same thing with Flint.
But that's my point. Is like Flint was taken care of within like 2 years after the incident, and then people still talked about it like 6 years after the water
because it wasn't
in Michigan, and
it wasn't like, taken care of right away, and people were lied to about it when it started.
I understand.
So we're contending with that. We just have to acknowledge that we're contending with people that simply do not trust either their local government on the issue or the federal government on the issue because of how badly it's been botched in the past.
Yeah, but I feel like I could point. The problem with it is, who do they trust? Because every single, like,
nobody on this. That's why you have to come out swinging on it, and you have to assuage their fears. It's a jump.
I feel like that is the problem, that they don't trust anyone, or they trust some fucking randos on the internet, and not that the government didn't. I don't know. Like, I feel like I want to put the onus a little bit more on crazy conspiracy theorists, way more than the government. And I understand the government should have some responsibility in optics, for sure. But when I place the blame on this situation, I want to talk about these fringe fucking radicals who have been steering the conversation into oblivion when we could be talking about. I think this is a good
segue, honestly.
I don't think Cypher. I know I'm not. I don't think Cypher is blaming the government. I think he probably agrees with you in the sense that this is clearly the part of it. Let's just call it what it is. Let's put our liberal elite glasses on. This is part of an uneducated, disinterested public. Like, they don't consume information well, but at the same time, that's the world we live in. You can't change that except gradually. So what I think Cypher's saying is, given that we can't snap our fingers and change how 330 million people consume information and what knowledge they have about the intricacies of local, state, and federal authorities with respect to environmental cleanup, what we can do is push government and our political party to do the best we can in that circumstance, but to minimize the fallout. Cypher, is that a fair way to describe what your position is?
I would say it is a fair way, but I wouldn't had said that this is the fact that people are ignorant. And that's just that's another optics thing. I mean, I understand people are not, a lot of people don't have media literacy that is necessary, especially for the internet age that we live in, simply because they were old when it came into existence. They're not going to understand that, you can just pop up a website and post wherever you want because their gatekeepers are down. Like, I get that. But I just wouldn't have said it that way. And I would also say that part of this is the government's fault on it, because the government simply is not doing enough to engender trust with people. And I think that's one of the government's number one things, is to create order out of the chaos. Now, we do have a party that's entire goal is to create as much chaos from the government as possible and get people to distrust every single institution in society because they don't control it. We have to fight against that. At the same time, the government needs to come in and say things like, hey, X, Y, and Z is happening. We're doing this, blah, blah, blah.
And say it loudly, very loudly.
Yeah, I think
often.
I think the disagreement, at least for me personally, is I want to focus in on my responsibilities when it comes to this incident, because how many people is it now? 10 people? Are we increasing numbers, or do we go back to 6?
We're now back in single digits. Okay, but listen, right. We're gonna splice this thing up. We're gonna drop like certain videos.
Oh, for sure. I'll throw it on my YouTube. Yeah. And then I'll get like 4 more views.
Right.
And then we're up to 14.
Sweet.
I will bring at least a dozen views after the fact to the table. Yeah. Maybe Destiny will review this. Maybe we can throw this out and make Destiny review this.
Those 10 people, none of them I can fairly say for sure are people to judge. All of those are people who just consume media. I know.
That is a perfect segue. All right, introducing Secretary Buttigieg, everybody.
Incredible. I feel like I get frustrated because I want to criticize the government, but I feel like the government did their job. Why the fuck would they listen to me? What I could change is how people engage with this incident and their media literacy. And I want to focus in on, hey, if this is the first time that you've heard, hey, things aren't that bad in East Palestine, I would encourage you to read a fucking article for once in your life, or to hear a thing and go like, oh, I didn't know about that, and then see what a major news organization said about
that bit.
Yeah, like
100%.
I want to be clear where my criticisms are because I know where my influence lies. And I don't think that my influence at all is with the Secretary of Transportation. I think that it is with how people engage with media. And I don't know. I think that that's why I want to talk about how people engage with this incident instead of how the government interacted with it. Because from what I could see, they hit 99%, right? Like the optics were a little off, but like the implementation, they fucking nailed. And I think that that's what I care about the most. And yeah, I think we're getting some spammers. I don't know what's going on over there.
I blocked them. For my money, Stacks, so here's where I am. I do agree that the government. Centrist. No, that's the thing. I hesitate to even say that because even like adopting a vaguely middle of the road position in between you two, it just freaks me out, and I don't like it. I don't like to be a centrist. But basically, I think here's where I agree with Cypher. I agree that, and you agree as well. We do have a consensus that the government shit the bed with respect to optics. Period. That facts don't sell themselves.
Yeah. Huh? Kinda. Like I would
he
even.
Still doesn't
I would
want
say
to
like
admit it.
barely.
He doesn't want to admit
it. It doesn't matter if it's a full-on like fecal like Jackson Pollock or if it's like a bit of trickle there. There is feces on the bed. The government and the Democratic Party did not do enough, in my opinion. Armchair quarterbacking here with the benefit of hindsight. We did not do enough to sell the facts. The fact that the facts are there in every CNN, MSNBC, and perhaps even every Fox News article you've ever read is irrelevant. Yeah. It needs to be in the headlines. It needs to be clips. It needs to go viral all the time. Facts. Sure. So I'm with Cypher there. But I also agree with you that in terms of our commentary, and this is where my videos, I can speak for myself, like the videos I've done about this, I've been simping for the government here. I've been like, look, you've been told this, but here's the facts. The EPA was there 2 hours. And so I agree with you that it's our job as left-leaning or leftist, Democrat advocates on either TikTok or YouTube or Twitch or all the above. On Twitter, it's our job to help sell the facts to whatever extent we can. And the facts are that the government did behave responsibly here, that the government did a relatively good job of trying to manage this crisis, especially when you consider the deregulated state. You have one political party that is fully mobilized to shit on everything that the Biden administration does and to pass the buck, to indulge in revisionist history. And the fact that just the landscape in general doesn't lend itself well to Democrats and the left because there's just this baked in distrust, especially where this derailment occurred, in a red state. So now it's our job to do exactly what you're talking about. Government should have done better on the optics, but now we need to sell the facts on behalf of the government since they didn't.
Yeah. I think for me, like, I think what is worse than Pete Buttigieg not speaking on this incident or Biden not making a public statement is Congressman Bowman tweeting that this is the biggest environmental crisis in the world that we've ever had, and that no one is talking about this. Right? When it was like 2 weeks after, and you could search any major news network and they had an article about this.
Wildly inappropriate. Yes.
I guess like I don't know. I feel like the government might have fear-mongered. Like I'm already a little worried about how the government has, or how the optics have sort of fear-mongered this situation. I'm worried about lending it any more credence than it needs. And
I don't understand how saying we're ensuring that things are being taken care of, it lends lends.
Like if Biden shows up to East Palestine and is like, "Whoa, holy shit, this is crazy. Let's we gotta." I don't know exactly what he would say, but something like, "Hey, I'm here for you guys." I feel like it almost like, "Holy shit, the president of the United States is there. Fuck, this is a big problem." And
maybe there is cause for concern in that. I think if we have it pounded like we are doing everything that if pounded like we did X, Y, and Z. This is the actual protocols. We're ensuring that everything's going to be taken care of. And if there's anything that we missed, we're going to make sure that the people are being taken care of post fact. So we're going to make sure that every single person that's in that area, that they have anything that can be traced back to this, gets healthcare for life, like something like that. Like these are things that I think would assuage the fear and the distrust and make sure people are understanding the government is having their back. And I think that's where the most of the optical stuff problems are. Not saying that this is the biggest thing. I don't think they necessarily need to say this is the biggest thing since Chernobyl. Like, I don't think that's the right way to approach it.
That's a crazy statement.
That's dumb.
That's a crazy statement.
It is. And to Stax's point, not only would it put Biden in an awkward position of, because then people are like, well, the only reason he's showing up now is because Trump got there first, that is so disempowering to the president of the United States in that office. That's one optics problem. Second optics problem is Biden would have to walk a crazy tightrope if he shows up, because to Stax's point, if the president of the United States shows up, it's a big deal. Yeah. But then he would also have to make the case that it's really not that big of a deal.
Yeah.
And the people he'd be saying that to do not want to hear that, so it's like, listen, I'm here. I'm the most powerful man in the world. I'm here. This is a big deal, but also it's really not a big deal. But I also
you guys
know
are
you
fine.
don't want to hear that it's a big deal. So like, I right now I'm with you. I think if Biden should have shown up, I think that ship has sailed. I think he just Buttigieg needs to be the highest ranking government official who deals with this.
Yeah, for sure.
And until evidence says otherwise, I want Biden to stay out of it personally.
Yes, sir.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Is there anything else you want to?
Yeah, I think that. Well, on this topic, there's nothing else that I'd want to discuss.
Yeah, is there anything else you want to say, Stax?
I feel like I've seen a lot of deranged things on the left, and I'm so grateful and I'm so willing to talk about issues with the right. But I do want to make sure that we keep ourselves in check sometimes, because I do feel like a lot of these conspiracy theories have flooded in from the left. And I'm grateful that you guys at least can say, hey, those people are being a little psychotic. Those people are being fear mongers. And I don't know, maybe I just needed to go talk to those people and yell at them, because
this was therapeutic, man. Listen, whatever's cathartic for you. All right. Like, no, I think we're all mostly on the same page. I'm not going to say that the overlap is a full circle, but there's a healthy like triquetra here, like a good overlap.
For sure.
So there are other topics as well that I was thinking about, and I pull up Axios just because it's the most digestible in terms of like kind of like bite-sized information. But like you have stuff like Ronna McDaniel going on CNN saying that she's going to require that all candidates pledge to support the GOP nominee ahead of the debate, which is something that so basically like Donald Trump is going to have to say, hey, look,
I'm going to support whoever.
Yeah. Which I can't imagine the words would ever leave his mouth. And if they do, you just trash him. Absolutely not.
How enforceable would that even be? Like, couldn't Trump just say, no, I'm gonna fucking run independent?
It's not.
And like,
that's what would happen. There's no way they can actually enforce this. They'll get like people like, oh, sure. And then what will happen is Trump's like, I'm not doing that. And everybody's like, well, we can't not have him run in our primary. So
right.
For sure. Cause you can like disinvite him from the RNC. And now it's like, oh, I'm against two big baddies. And now everyone's on Trump's side. Cause they're
honestly, let's hope that happens, because it's the
split tickets,
surest way.
I agree.
Democrats win.
I do agree. I'm cautiously optimistic about 2024, because Biden has been like doing way better with approval ratings than he really ever has been in his presidency. And
pardon?
Like
what? I'm sorry.
Biden's approval? Yeah, Biden's doing well.
I think he's fine. I think he might now be in the 40s. I don't know if he's doing well.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
In a modern presidential sense, you're not going to get anywhere in the 50s.
Yeah, no,
but 40 and above is good.
I think he just hit 50, and that was like a big deal. It's like he finally.
Oh, I didn't know he hit 50. But
I might be wrong.
That was in one. I'll look it up really quick.
Yeah,
Biden approval.
Yeah,
So here's an article that I read. I just found it again. Biden approval rating highest in almost a year survey.
Link it in our private chat.
50-40 from
here. There's an article here.
Yeah, link it in private chat right here.
So there's an article, or there's a graph in the article, is kind of the one that I was referring to. Is like it's been down a little bit, and now it's right there.
Oh wow!
Now,
That is
I
good
agree.
news.
I agree. It's not that much of a big deal. But also, DeSantis and Trump have very clearly taken two sides. Like they are butting heads really hard right now.
Well,
And
yeah, no, Trump is butting DeSantis's head. DeSantis is desperate to do anything in his power to avoid a direct confrontation with the Don. Oh, look at that. Okay, all right. Well,
It's disapproval. Yeah, that's the
Yeah.
average. From
No, I
But
know,
I-
but I was thinking it was like in like the late 30s or like super early,
Yeah.
like 41. I mean, him at 43%, given the political headwinds, is phenomenal for Biden.
sure. And
Anyway, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Stax. Actually, well, hang on. Before we jump into this, what I wanted to do was like just tease out like things we could talk about, and then we could pick one. So
sure.
just hang on. The RNC thing was one. The CIA director is pretty confident that the Chinese is considering lethal aid for Russia. You have a judge announcing that there's going to be that 2,000 records cannot be viewed in a January 6th probe due to Rick Perry or Scott Perry. Yeah, his phone situation, which I know that's generated just some news in the past like 24 hours. You have the fact that Tucker Carlson dropped 40,000 or plans to drop 40,000 hours worth of exclusive Capitol footage to Tucker Carlson and Tucker Carlson alone for propaganda purposes. You have Pence continuing to lightly tap Trump's balls. You have Republicans planning to investigate Pete Buttigieg over the train derailment, of course. You have like,
Let's talk about that one.
Say what? Yeah,
Let's
I
talk
know.
about that one.
You know what? Actually, as a matter
I'm
of
just
fact, we're going to
kidding.
delete that one for now. Yeah, it's a good point. You have Dr. Biden signaling that President Biden will run for re-election. And
That was a
he's gonna make
given.
an announcement soon. Huh?
That was a given. He's
Yeah.
wanted this his entire life. He's been running for president since he ran for office.
Yeah.
So real
Then you have
recognizes
North
real. That's all
Korea.
I'm saying.
Yeah, Pyongyang test firing cruise missiles as the U.S. and South Korea holds a drill. You've got China calling for a Russia-Ukraine war ceasefire, even as they're apparently considering sending lethal aid to Russia. And those are just some samples. So
Yeah.
is there anything that jumped out at you guys as far as like those topics that you want to talk about?
We can talk about the Chinese one too a little bit because I think I know
supporting
where
Chinese.
I think I know where they're getting that information from.
Which one? The ceasefire or the
Yeah, because there was
confident-
2 Chinese articles. And there's the last one.
The lethal aid.
Okay,
the
here we
lethal aid.
go.
Oh, okay.
So I don't have the tweets on hand, but there are a few very pro-China tweets, Twitter accounts that are appearing to be somewhat linked to the government. And basically they go out and they telegraph to see where things are. So they posted a series of like 30 or 40 tweets that was like, Russia, you can just buy weapons from China, right? And so they just list every single quote unquote modern weapon system that China could sell to Russia to help turn the tide of the conflict. We're talking tanks, there was drones, there was planes, there was ships, there was ammunition, there was artillery, like it was everything that China does. And that's happened more and more. So it wasn't just that one account, it was several accounts, people that are directly linked to the Chinese government. The Wan Yu guy, I think is what his name is. He's like the big right-wing person that everybody likes to post. The right-wingers like to talk about. Oh God, I can picture his face, but if I describe it, it's just going to sound generic because he looks generic as fuck.
Vaguely racist, I'm sure. You're going to get canceled.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But there was like 3 or 4 of those that was happening along the time that, China's like, you don't tell us what to do. We are big and bad. And I'm just like, okay, we can see what's going on.
Do you think that the United States, so to provide some context here, obviously we have the main theater is Russia's invasion of Ukraine, but at the same time, with respect to China, we have the spy balloon situation and the optics associated with that. The fact that even though China denied it was a spy balloon, they were pissed that the U.S. shot it down. And it was right at the time that Secretary Blinken, our Secretary of State, was going to meet with his counterpart in China in Beijing for the first time in think it was like 6 or 8 years that a U.S. top official has met with their Chinese counterpart. So all of that's kind of like percolating at the same time. And of course, Russia and China have shared sympathies, anti-American sympathies for decades. So that's kind of all the factors at play here. Do you think, because I have not read this article, I was just pulling headlines from earlier today. Do you think that if CIA Director Bill Burns says he's confident Chinese leadership is considering the provision of lethal equipment to Russia in its war against Ukraine, how much of that do you think is motivated or exacerbated by the fact that we shot down their balloon? Like they're pissed off.
I don't think it has much to do with it. Some of the rhetoric does, I do believe, simply because they have cultivated a highly nationalistic sector of their population to be hyper nationalistic in order to alleviate some of the tensions that exist within internal Chinese politics. Whether it's be the zero COVID or before COVID, where there be excess young men that don't have anything to do, so they have to give their energies to something. And that has been in the recent past, both getting them to join the military as well as going abroad to work so that they're not in China, taking up space basically, and being more or less useless to the Chinese government. So that's part of it. I think more of the part of it, though, is our targeting of their technology sectors, especially when it comes to chip manufacturing and artificial intelligence. They have invested huge amounts of money into both. And the reason they did that is because they needed to actually try to develop something that would give them a technological edge and a comparative advantage, not only militarily, but technology and corporation wise, so that it could also dominate a market, because they're not able to dominate any markets anymore.
So you think this is, you would say, compared to spy balloons, you would say the predicate for this is actually more something like the CHIPS Act, which we passed last year, which, increases, investment in semiconductor chip manufacture and artificial intelligence development. You think they're probably saltier about that than like that's more the predicate for this?
I would say it's that, but also the fact that we've upped our rhetoric around Taiwan. We've upped our rhetoric around telling China that they can't do something. And China's like, what? You're America. You literally invade countries. Fuck you. Like there is that kind of like, you're being disingenuous. You're being unkind. You're not being respectful enough. And we're just not going to take it. Like, it's very much of a disrespect. Like it's a losing face kind of thing in this. And that's why the CHIPS Act matters. That's why them cultivating a nationalistic portion of the population matters to this, to drum up support.
Yeah, I would fully agree with the Taiwan rhetoric, because I do think that China is very invested in Russia winning this Ukraine war, mostly because it's.
Oh, I don't think they are.
You don't think so? Like, I think it's a huge. I think it's a huge indicator for how the U.S. and how NATO as a whole will respond to any conflict with
Taiwan. Stax, to clarify, when you say investment, you don't mean like in terms of like finance or material.
No, I mean like political military investment. I think that, to me, it seems like how this war goes and how NATO and how the US in particular responds to this, especially under such a pro-Taiwan president as Biden is, which isn't like so pro-Taiwan, but in regards to like US,
he said more blatant things in Taiwan's defense, more arguably reckless things than any president.
Yes.
True.
Yeah.
And I'm saying he's not blatantly pro-Taiwan, but he's more pro-Taiwan than America's almost ever been. I think that they're very interested in how we support Ukraine, and I think they really want Russia to win this war so that maybe US is disincentivized to support Taiwan in case there's a conflict in the South.
Cypher, before you respond, I kind of want to tease this out a bit more just to get further like elucidation from Stax. So Stax, do you think that they're invested in these are not necessarily mutually exclusive? Do you think they are spiritually or politically, optically, ideologically invested in Russia winning? Or do they not care and they just want this conflict to drag out? Or is it they have one preference, but they take the other?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure about that one. I don't know if I was implying that I had a commentary on that. I don't know. How do you feel about whether or not?
Well, we'll revisit that in a second. I just
Sure.
because Cypher clearly, and I want him to elaborate here in a second, but he clearly disagreed with the idea that China is invested in a Russian victory. And so I was wondering if you thought that they were invested in a Russian victory, or just like drawing this out, this conflict between Russia and Ukraine, in which the United States is financially and politically invested, and it just buys China more time to, quell their own internal issues and expand initiatives in Africa and try to fight the fact that the U.S. is wresting control of semiconductor chip industry, things like that. I didn't know if you thought they were playing for time, or they really want to see Russia make a decisive victory here because they're buddies. That I was trying to get you to clarify there.
I don't even think that it's because they're buddies. I think they're enemy of an enemy, really,
Right.
more than friends. I think that they're worried about how U.S. will respond to any sort of annexation of Taiwan or any conflict in the South China Sea. And I don't know. I think that this they might see Russia and Ukraine as kind of a microcosm, or like a good indication of how things might go for them.
What do you think, Cypher? You seem like you disagreed, so can you expound on your views?
Yeah, I think China is more invested in the current world order than a lot of people give them credit for. And that's simply because they've fully integrated into the current world order. And what they're trying to do is play within that current world order to their advantage. So Russia invading Ukraine, which everybody agreed was a sovereign country, is not the same thing in their mind as them taking Taiwan back over. Because Taiwan is still in the world order, considered part of China, but like a independent kind of, I don't know, not even protectorate or whatever, right? So their concern about Taiwan, and when it comes to this Russia thing, is actually probably the opposite. They don't want somebody to go in and invade that country and take it over and make it independent.
Interesting. Okay.
So that's where I'm thinking with that. They're clearly, in my opinion, talking out both sides of their mouths. And that's because I think they're actually trying to sublimate Russia to make them their bitch. I think that's partly what they're doing with this. They know that Russia is being heavily reliant on China to buy its oil under these current sanctions. They didn't try to stop the sanctions, and they're taking as much advantage of that as they possibly can. So they're going to prop up Russia as long as it's beneficial to them. But as soon as it becomes not beneficial to them and not beneficial to the world order, they're going to pull back in some way. And I think them trying to sue for peace here, while also Europe is trying to sue for peace. I think people are just tired of the conflict continuing. It's getting in the way of them making money. Everybody is worried about a global recession. If there's a war going on while there's a global recession, everybody gets fucked. So everybody's like, hey, man, you got to do this. And America's just sitting back pretty, but like, we're 2 oceans away. You can keep fighting. Here's some money. We got it. We're good. So
do you think Vladimir Putin miscalculated or misunderstood his relationship with Xi Jinping? Because I remember when the war began, a lot of commentary, if I remember correctly, was about, oh my God, it won't be too long before China either militarily or financially really intervenes on Russia's behalf, especially when President Biden was hitting Russia with sanctions. A lot of the fear was, oh my God, China's going to step in and try to alleviate the burden. And it doesn't look like Chinese assistance has come nearly to the extent that a lot of people feared. So do you think Putin misunderstood his relationship with Xi Jinping?
I think to an extent, possibly. I don't know how their internal communications, or rather them communicating with China, actually goes down. They have the Shanghai Cooperation Pact, I think it's what it's called, or Shanghai Cooperation Organization. It's similar to
Comet
what
Pizza.
they're trying.
It's the Comet Pizza Pact.
Exactly.
But it's similar to how the United States has bilateral defense treaties with other organizations. It's kind of China's answer to maybe NATO to an extent, but it's very Chinese centric, right? So it's very much like we're trying to set up a way to prevent maybe America from thinking it can exert its influence in Southeast Asia as much as it wants to. It's more on the kind of eastern block of that. We're talking Kazakhstan, Turkmenistan, China. There's been talks, I believe, with Vietnam in this regard, but not like super
It makes
ones.
sense since Vietnam is still communist.
Yeah.
Burma, or whatever you want to call it, Myanmar, I don't care. Whatever. So it's kind of like that. And I think what I really think, though, is that pundits within the United States and Europe, less so Europe, more so United States, have basically let Cold War brain rot their ability to see things of how it's changed. This comes into play when we're talking about like, oh, it's going to start World War III if America actually invades to protect Ukraine. It's going to pop off World War III. Everybody's going to blow each other up. And I'm like, no, the Cold War doesn't exist. You guys everybody is misidentifying why the Cold War was such a scary time. It was such a scary time because you literally had two empires going at it. And it put the entire world into a bipolar situation where you were either with the United States or with Russia. And if you were trying to play anything in between, you're kind of looked at as like a problem that somebody else had to solve.
And why don't
that
you
is
think
not the
that's
legal
case
world
now?
we live in.
Are you saying it's more tripartite, like with United States, Russia, and China? Or
I think we're in more of a multipolar world than a lot of people want to talk about. I think we have Russia as being somewhat of an axis. We have, in the Middle East, we're starting to see one develop between Saudi Arabia, Israel, and the various kingdoms of the Sunni kingdoms. You have a partial kind of thing going on with Iran in there as well, where they support different factions within those places. That's why you have a civil war going on in Yemen. That's why you have Hezbollah in Lebanon. You have the European Union setting up its own kind of bloc situation. And then you have China kind of trying to set up this greater China bloc, this old empire that they used to have with various vassal states all throughout Southeast Asia. And the United States is kind of sitting on its own, where it's kind of supporting Europe. It's kind of getting its own thing. It's kind of getting heavily involved in South America and its hemisphere. So I think we have 4, maybe 5 like different groups, and India is rising too. So India is starting to project its power outward as well, beyond Pakistan, Bangladesh.
I actually read an article, speaking of India. I don't know if it's been corrected or whatever, but I thought I read an article a couple of weeks ago that said that India's population actually surpassed China's.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know. Then I thought I read another article which said no, China's again like the second most popular. So it seems like they're at least neck and neck in terms of population.
Population wise, it does appear that India is starting to overtake China, because China is in a demographic death right now because of its one-child policy. But there's also the idea that China has been either outright lying about its current population or simply did estimates horribly wrong. We're talking hundreds of millions off of their actual population, not anything to sneeze off about.
Yeah,
Tiberius knows a lot about this. He can tell you a good amount about the demographic situation there.
Yeah, well, the numbers are so close that any sort of almost any
margin of error.
Yeah, any margin of error is gonna, because I just looked it up. India is 1.42 and China is about 1.41 billion. So very, very close.
With what Cypher was saying earlier, Stax, right before we just segued off into interesting population discourse in India census, you had a brief Tucker Carlson look on your face that kind of like, I don't know, were you just contemplating, or was there a disagreement that you were going to proffer with Cypher?
No, I don't care too much for conflict. Honestly, I agree with everything that Cypher says.
That's good.
I don't
fought enough on East Palestine, and it broke my heart. It was like mom and dad fighting. I just couldn't handle it.
No, I don't remember which one. I think I disagreed a little bit, but then I heard more of your explanation. I was like, oh, I see where he's coming from. I think we're good. I think I agree for the most part on what you're saying between.
If we are going to have a World War III situation or nukes popping off, it won't be because of the Ukraine conflict, in my opinion. It will be because of war between the United States and China.
Yeah,
it will be
sorry.
fallout.
Are you worried about triggering Article 5 if the US gets involved in Ukraine and like NATO suddenly
No.
has to take
Because Article 5 can't be Article 5 is more defense oriented. If the United States does get directly involved, other nations will, because where the United States go, Europe goes when it comes to this.
For sure.
I don't think it would, but nobody wants that, right? I don't think anybody wants outright conflict with Russia because, well, everybody's honestly, I think a lot of people are just waiting for Putin to die. It's not that he's sick; it's that he's 70, right? And so, what the long-term game plan is that you wait until he's no longer competent enough to actually lead Russia, and you find out whoever his protege or his handpicked like successor is be, and then you're trying to influence them. I think that's where the long-term game is.
Sidebar. I wonder who that is because it used to be Medvedev, but then he retired. Yeah. Like they were,
I don't know.
It was the arrangement between Putin and Medvedev was hilarious because one was prime minister and the other was president, and then they would switch roles. And it's like, hey, if I'm president, I'll make you my prime minister to circumvent like term limits and term caps. It was so nakedly transparent. But now I don't even know if Medvedev has a government role at this point. I think he may have retired. He's just in the Russian equivalent of the private sector. So I don't even know who Putin's protege is.
I have no idea. It's possible he hasn't picked one, honestly. Like he
just has this idea that he'll live forever. Like
maybe not even live forever, but live long enough to where maybe not live forever, but maybe long enough to where he becomes a great and it just becomes a monarchy. Like I could actually see
he just
him
rebuilds
being that
the
deranged.
USSR. Yeah. He's like, I don't even need a protege. Like I built my empire. Someone will take over.
The empire is good. You're gonna my son will take over. Like I could see him being that stupid.
I'm sorry. Was there anything else you wanted to talk about as far as the Russia-Ukraine stuff?
So I think Biden has almost explicitly said that the reason why we don't have boots on the ground and why we haven't set up like a no-fly zone over Ukraine is because they're worried about like an Article 5 trigger.
He specifically said, "Oh, that would be World War III." Like I honestly think everybody miscalculates this. I think everybody is wrong on this. I think Biden saying that would be wrong as well. I don't think. Because what I think would happen, so this is the concern, right? The concern is that everybody would push Putin to use a tactical nuclear weapon. They don't think he would actually use like a bunch of bombs, but using a tactical nuke in order to turn the tide of battle. Do you know what I think if that were to happen? I think Russia would finally experience imperialism. That's what I think would happen. Russia would get carved the fuck up because everybody's like, you crossed the Rubicon.
Exist.
You cannot exist. We can't trust you to exist. You did the unthinkable. Even the United States hasn't used another nuke since Nagasaki and Hiroshima.
But wouldn't that incentivize them just to play I hate playing the devil's advocate here, but I think some people would say, you're right, that would probably happen if they deploy a tactical nuke against Ukraine. That could very well, be the harbinger of invasion. But then wouldn't that drive Putin?
It would drive them to try to. It would drive them to use more nukes, but I think everybody would be on the same page and everybody would be against Russia. I think they would have no friends, and I honestly don't think that the generals in Russia would actually follow such an order because of that. Because everybody's waiting to take over the klepto state. They're not waiting. They're not waiting for Putin to say jump. They're not waiting for all this. They're waiting to be like, man, if I live long enough and make myself integrated into this society long enough, into this cabal or this oligarchy or whatever the hell you want to call it, I'm going to be living pretty and my family's going to be living pretty for generations. Why would anybody want to risk that?
There's that classic example in history of like the general during World War II or during the Cold War, who got a notification that the nuclear bombs were coming in and they said, no, that's not happening. We're all on the same page, and then chose not to send nukes back. And it was a miscalculation. That's not what happened. And I do agree that the entire human population, sans maybe a couple hundred people, are on the same board. Hey, let's not throw nuclear weapons around. Maybe that's a bad idea.
So wait, are you pro or anti-nuclear war, given that you're pro?
Just to be clear, I'm anti-nuclear war because it might get me killed. But if anyone else were to get killed, it's totally fine.
I was just going to say,
as long as I could just put a little bubble around me, which let's do that. Now I'm suddenly for.
Well, I was just going to say, given your pro-homeless stance, like whatever number of people survive the fallout for however long, they would probably be homeless. So even though like the raw numbers would be
true.
reduced, the rate of homelessness would probably be much
You might
higher.
have just convinced me.
I'm just saying, I mean, obviously I'm anti-nuclear war. I don't know where Cypher stands on the matter. He's cagey in that respect.
Come
but
on, follow me to the shell. Follow me through the fallout, baby.
Yeah.
Hey, yo.
So is there anything else on that subject? Because I think the last thing I really want to talk about are the number of, it's like been back to back to back major bad news legally for Trump in terms of the Fulton County, Georgia investigation, in terms of the special counsel subpoenas, things like that. It's been in terms of litigation, in terms of legal maneuvers from both the federal government and Georgia. Donald Trump has had a bad week. Bad few weeks. So, but before we move to that, was there anything you wanted to talk or finish up on Ukraine, Russia, and China?
I'm good.
And the United States.
No, I'm good.
Okay.
I have a question for you, Rivenate, Josiah, whatever the hell you go by.
I'm going. Oh, why am I news? That's not what I meant to do. I meant to label the. I am the news.
Yeah.
I am the Senate.
Do you feel like all of these subpoenas and all of this bad news for Trump might actually be spun in a way that's good? Because I mean, like, I'll be so clear. I'm kind of over being excited whenever Trump gets bad news because he kind of always finds a way to spin it in his favor.
Teflon Don, baby.
Put that John Oliver clip up really quick where he said, "We got him," and pushes the button.
Yeah, exactly. I do feel like there is a possibility, and I'm not saying the government is bad for doing this. There is a possibility that Trump spins this in a way where he's like, look, I'm up against the wall. Everyone is coming after me. This is why you kind of have to take my side on these things, because I have these institutional pressures against me. And this is why you need me as president. Again, look at how shit the country has gotten. They're willing to subpoena all of my friends and family because they hate who I am. Do you feel like that might be a possibility? Do you feel like that might be a possibility that like Trump actually ends up getting more support because of all of this stuff coming out?
I think that hang on, let me put this lower third up. Hang on. Okay, so I think in terms of the Republican Party, I think in terms of the MAGA animating spirit of the Republican Party, Donald Trump will absolutely spin this successfully in terms of like galvanizing his base. The people who support him already, I don't believe sans like a true negligible margin of error. So dozens, hundreds, perhaps thousands. I think it'll be a statistical blip. The number of Trump supporters who are persuaded by anything that comes from the special counsel, any of the New York lawsuits, anything from Fulton County, Georgia. I think it's so ideological at this point that you're not going to shave off meaningful support from the Republican Party.
He can shoot a person on Central Ave. And
say, right. No, he did say that. Literally. And I think it was absolutely true.
I think he was legitimately spitting facts. Like when that he was saying that, I'm like, honestly, you're kind of right.
No, like not even kind of. That is one thing I'll say to his credit. Like when it comes to evaluating the fanaticism of his own support, Donald Trump has his thumb on his fingers on the pulse of his support better than anybody. He was right when he said he could shoot if he shot somebody on Fifth Avenue, MAGA would be saying, why did that person put their head up?
Why did he antagonize the president?
Right. Why did did this person jump
they'll like dig into his records and find out that like
but what did he do?
Right. Exactly.
Like, oh shit.
So
this guy was jaywalking.
But this is why I think regardless, these things need to happen, because the purpose of the lawsuits and the legal action shouldn't be to persuade the public of the validity of the claim. Like that'd be like an added bonus if we could successfully and persuasively make the case that, listen, this was all done above board. The facts are here. And it's simply a matter of fact, exhaustively researched, exhaustively corroborated fact that Donald Trump is corrupt and committed crimes. That would be great. And I think that people like Jack Smith and Attorney General Garland and Fani Willis in Georgia and the district attorney of Attorney General of New York, they need to make that case to the best of their ability. But regardless of whether or not it would succeed in persuading Trump supporters or prevent Trump from trying to spin it, it needs to proceed anyway. So it's not going to stop him from spinning it. And I don't think it's going to meaningfully persuade most of his base. But I think on the legal merits, it's looking like they truly have him. And the aggression with which Jack Smith, the special counsel, has been moving against Donald Trump has been really encouraging, because I actually had this argument with Pisco. Are either of you familiar with Pisco, Destiny's lawyer friend?
Familiar with him.
Yes.
Okay. So I had this argument with Pisco because, you know, and of course he's an attorney, so he has me at somewhat of a disadvantage here, but he's really happy with how things have unfolded, not just with Jack Smith, but also Attorney General Garland in terms of appointing special counsels. Whereas I am more sympathetic to this idea that I think that Garland, I respect the fact that Garland's an institutionalist and he is trying to do things above board, but I think that after time, it's like, dude, come on, this slow walking this, you are not gonna persuade the MAGA base to take you more seriously. The fact that you're targeting Trump at all, the fact that you work for Joe Biden, you're written off to them. Okay. So I'm not saying that you should rush ahead at breakneck speed, but this idea that, listen, I can win these people back. You're not gonna. So it was frustrating that for 2 years, it seemed like Garland was going out of his way to avoid taking any sort of aggressive action on this. He was like, it was so annoying. Where Jack Smith has upped the ante incredibly. Like, he has subpoenaed multiple Republican officials, certainly in Western states, people who were supposedly involved with attempts to like fake elector schemes and, you know, like collaborating with attempts to overturn the election. He's now subpoenaed Vice President Pence. He's now subpoenaed Ivanka and Jared. This is good. And to me, this suggests that Jack Smith's not screwing around. These are unprecedented aggressive actions, and he's done them within a span of 2 or 3 months. You know, that's more aggressive action than Merrick Garland took in 2 years. So I think Jack Smith will recommend charges. It looks like the Fulton County District Attorney Fannie Willis, the grand jury, the special grand jury, that they recommended that she recommend charges as well. So yeah, I think that there will be legal action against Donald Trump, and I think it needs to happen.
Yeah. Something that I think about a lot is when I look at like historical examples of similar corruption, kind of the first thing I look to is like Nixon. And I feel like every time I talk about Nixon, or I think about that era, it feels like no one really took his side, and it didn't feel as bipartisan, going, like, letting justice see its due course. I guess my question is, I'm curious what you guys think, either of you. If you feel like that's a historical, that actually it was, as you know, that this is actually just how politics plays, and we always have this like historical bias where we look back and we say, well, obviously the conclusion is what is how everyone felt at the time. Or if you feel like we're more divided as ever, or if Trump is just kind of this unique figure that's kind of outside of historical norms.
I've got strong opinions on this, but I just spoke. So if Cypher wants to say anything on this subject, I'll let him go first.
I honestly think the internet just fucked everybody.
Sure.
I think that's
we name the stream here. Yeah.
I think that's primarily what it boils down to. I do see the parallels between Nixon and Trump. Nixon was way smarter, but also had way more integrity. So if you had hit that lack of integrity, Nixon wouldn't have resigned. Nixon resigned for the good of the party. He resigned for his own legacy. He resigned because he realized he fucked up and he needed to go away. And it was also a way to prevent him from facing the music when Ford gave him a pardon.
Yeah.
Trump wasn't going to do that. Trump's not going to admit fault because he's an egotistical, maniacal fuckwit that can't do any wrong. So yeah, that's where I'm at.
Okay. Yeah. So for me, I think your analysis was right on the money, Stax. The Republican Party in 2023 is not to simp for the GOP back in the 70s, but it's wildly different animals. So to be clear, the Republican Party did run some measure of interference for President Nixon until it became obvious that not only was he guilty, and not only was there, whispers of potentially, prosecuting him, but that an impeachment would succeed. And so he was confronted by members of his own party, resign, because if you force an impeachment here, the Democrats will successfully convict you there, and there will be enough Republican support to ensure a conviction. So to Cypher's point, it was, you might make the case that it was an act of integrity. I'm not a mind reader, but it was certainly at a degree of self-awareness that Donald Trump simply lacks. He's too much of a malignant narcissist to be that self-aware. And he had a Republican Party that was willing to privately, again, this was a private conversation. They didn't like confront Nixon in the press, but they went to him in private and said, Mr. President, resign now, because either we will back a conviction or enough members of our party, even if we won't, will do it for you. And this will be embarrassing for you and everybody. That sort of self-awareness and willingness to defy a Republican just doesn't exist. And
Sure.
this is a partisan issue because there's partisanship among Democrats as well, but I'm fully convinced that if you had a Democrat do the things that Donald Trump did, you would have dozens of Democrats willing to impeach and convict him in a way that Republicans simply wouldn't for their own guy. So I do think that that's a major difference. But this is important because we have to show, like, we pimp out this sentiment that nobody is above the law, but obviously we know, because again, we're left leaning, that that's obviously not true in execution.
Sure.
But I think that the Department of Justice, not only do they have Trump on the facts, but I think they also have to make an example of him because he didn't do what Nixon did. I think Biden, Garland, Republicans and Democrats, I think most people would have preferred Trump just fall on the sword rather than put us in a position where we have to cut him down with it, politically speaking.
For sure.
But he wouldn't do that. And this is so, like, even in this situation, it's so funny to me because even the nuances of it. So Mike Pence, who also announced that he's running in 2024. I believe he did. Maybe no, he didn't. He didn't.
I didn't hear
do it
that.
yet.
Not yet.
Yeah,
Not yet.
it's just been signaled that he's running for office in 2024. So this to me is really interesting. So the House Select January 6th Select Committee, they wanted to talk to Pence when Democrats held the House. They wanted to talk to him. I don't know if they ever issued a subpoena, but they did want to talk to him, and Pence said he wouldn't talk to them. And when asked about it, when he was pimping out a book back in November, he wrote a memoir, and he was asked about it by the press, like, hey, look, the House Select Committee is wrapping up this January 6th investigation. They've wanted to talk to you. Would you talk to them? And he said, no, I think it'd be an appropriate separation of powers. I don't think it'd be appropriate for a legislative committee to summon a vice president or a former vice president and essentially interrogate them. And I had mixed feelings about that because I understand in theory, like, it shouldn't be cavalier or casual for Congress to summon high-ranking executives. Like, it should be extremely difficult to do so. I'm sympathetic to that. Of course, I was also thinking, you're not a vice president, you're a former vice president, and the context of this is really, really important. We're talking about an attempted coup. But he said that. Separation of powers, not going to do it. So then a few days later, Jack Smith, who is the special prosecutor, he is an agent of the executive branch, he reached out to Mike Pence and said, well, I'd like to talk to you. And then we didn't hear shit for months. And then it turns out Jack Smith has now issued a subpoena, like, okay, you won't talk to me, so now I'm going to make you talk to me. But now Pence is now claiming legislative privilege. He's like, look, separation of powers. You can't talk to me because I'm also a member of the legislative branch as president of the Senate. So he's like doing this tap dance, and it's so disgusting and disingenuous, where he's clearly doing everything in his power to avoid testifying and to avoid pissing off the MAGA base. And this to me is like another example kind of under the Trump umbrella. We have to now make an example of Pence too. Like, hey, no, you can't do this. The separation of powers doctrine was not meant to be a shield where the vice president is just uniquely shielded from any sort of oversight. The executive branch can't talk to him because he's a member of the legislative branch. Legislative branch can't talk to him because he's a member of the executive branch. This is unacceptable. But not only that, now they're going, Jack Smith's also subpoenaed Jared Kushner and Ivanka Trump. And so, like, it's just, to me, this indicates that Jack Smith gives fewer fucks about the potential fallout of indicting a former president or even a potential future president, since Trump is officially running in 2024. It seems like Jack Smith is willing to flip the boat if need be in relentless pursuit of the facts. And I think that's exactly what we need in this country. I know people are like, well, maybe Biden, James Comey said this, former FBI director James Comey, he said, listen, what Biden should do for the sake of the country is pardon Donald Trump for any and all crimes, just like Gerald Ford did for President Nixon.
No, fuck that.
and I know Stax feels the same way.
No, I do. I was so pissed. Who said that again? Who said
James
that?
Comey, former FBI director.
No.
Comey.
Who said that they shouldn't?
Oh, that they shouldn't? Oh, Cypher said you
never mind.
shouldn't. Yeah, Cypher.
No. Sorry, they obviously should not pardon Trump. That's a fucking ridiculous statement. The whole point of liberal institutions is that nobody is above the law, and this is the best example to make sure that doesn't happen again.
No, I mean, I know that we're kind of a unified front here, but
Sure.
the only thing we might disagree on, I think an indictment is coming. I think he's going to either get it from Georgia or from Jack Smith, or potentially both. And as far as how he'll spin it, he certainly will. But I think this needs to happen regardless of the political consequences.
Yeah.
I think whatever risk to the political, to the political tapestry of the United States, fuck it. At this point, it's like Republicans, you had your chance to self-correct. You had your chance to convict this guy twice of impeachment, to invoke the 25th Amendment after January 6th. You had every opportunity to take matters into your own hands, but you lacked the courage, the integrity to do it. So now the law's got to do it for you.
Sooner rather than later, too.
No, 100%. 100% agree.
Because what we don't want him to run and have that to be the shield, right? Because just what he's hoping, that's what he's partly hoping for. That's not why he's running. I don't think that's the only reason he's running.
Is there anyone else who's declared their run yet, other than Trump?
Trump and Nikki Haley.
Oh, Nikki.
And then the venture capitalist, the Indian venture capitalist guy.
And Marianne Williams, I think, is officially now she's running as a Democrat in 2024.
As a Democrat?
Yeah.
They're running
in 2020. Yeah.
Okay, so Sanders did the same thing in 2012. Marianne Williamson, Orb Lady.
Yeah.
Let the crystals go through you.
Yeah. Wait, sorry. What's this person's name?
Marianne Williamson.
No. I know Marianne Williamson. Who's is that the person who's running right now?
Yes. On the Democratic side, yes.
Gotcha. Marianne Williamson has declared her presidency, or her bid for
candidacy.
Her intent.
I did not hear that. That is
it's just within the past like 24
I know
Orb
Lady,
hours.
Please excuse me. Yeah, no, that's wild. I did not hear about that.
Do you think? Do you guys think DeSantis will announce that he's running eventually? Like, do you think he'll run?
I would think so.
I think so too, but let's look at the crowded field that everybody's thinking is going to happen.
Yeah.
And then what's going to happen if he loses the primary? He can never run again, right? Because he's taking on Trump. He might not run. He might wait it out.
I don't know. I don't know if I see the benefit. Here's what I think. Here's the only reason why I think DeSantis would not run for the Republican primary is I think he's worried. Well, now this is an interesting. I think I convinced myself that he wouldn't, because he's hoping to win, obviously. And what happens if he wins, right? There's Trump runs against him, and you got a split ticket issue, and you're never winning the presidency. Like, I think he has to recognize the egotistical power of Donald Trump. And if Trump isn't in jail by 2024, I don't think DeSantis will run, because he knows that Trump will run on its own and he'll get a significant amount of the votes that should go towards him.
So to clarify, Stax, you think that, are you saying that you don't think DeSantis will run because he's worried he will lose, or because it will cause the Republican nominee to lose, whoever it is, because Trump will run against him as a spoiler?
I think that he knows that there will be a spoiler, and the Democrats will just win if Trump doesn't get the Republican primary, because then Trump will just run as an independent. And I think he knows that.
Right. So I actually, weirdly enough, I'm with you that I think that DeSantis would not run if he thinks it will increase the likelihood that a Democrat will win. I obviously, if DeSantis runs, he'll want to win, but I think that, like, Biden's a great example. Biden ran for president multiple times and eventually did succeed. So I don't think it's DeSantis is more worried, like, I have to run and win. I think he knows that he can take an L. He obviously wouldn't want to, but I think if he thinks that it would cause Trump to run as a spoiler and cause Joe Biden or whoever the Democratic nominee is, which it will be Biden if he runs again, gets them a second term. I think DeSantis is more party focused than Trump is, if that makes sense.
But I also think for selfish reasons, you kind of have to recognize that there's almost no chance. There's less than a 1% chance that DeSantis will become president, because if he wins a Republican primary, then Trump will run on his own and then split the ticket. Like, I don't see a world that'll happen. I don't see a world in which DeSantis wins the Republican primary and Trump just sort of pledges his support under DeSantis and DeSantis wins in the general.
So
I don't.
Can you clarify? Can you clarify what you said? You don't think that'll happen?
I don't necessarily think he's egotistical. It's a high possibility. I don't think it's a sure thing that Trump losing the Republican primary will ensure that he runs as a third party candidate.
I think we need to do everything in our power to goad him into doing it.
Agreed.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. Yeah. But I don't think the reason I'm hesitant to say that DeSantis is for sure going to get in isn't because of that, though. I think it's more because DeSantis has cultivated the MAGA base and is Trump without the baggage. And going that route in the primary won't ensure that he wins the primary, because Trump is an avatar for these people. So it's beyond the fact that he represents what they are. It's more that he is the amalgamation of everything that they want to have happen, including the bragging, the downplaying, the ego, the owning the libs. Like, that's what people want. They want that kind of fighter, and DeSantis being all those things but not Trump isn't going to be enough to get him to win. So the longer this goes on, the longer he takes to announce, the less likely I think he's actually going to. This isn't going to be a Biden thing where it's like the last minute, quote unquote. I think if he's not announced by like July, I think it's done. I don't think he's going to run.
Do you think he's signaling that he does intend to run, though, given that he's been going on tour? Like, he went up to like New York and other places as well recently.
He's definitely running. He's totally running for president. It's just there is maybe still the possibility. Maybe not in 2024. It's like, if I had to give it a percentage, I'd hedge. I'd say probably 60% that he is going to run, but 40% he's not. And I think it's higher than a lot of people are giving it credit for.
Yeah, I don't know if I see the benefit from his perspective of running in 2024. Like, I don't think he wants to fight against Trump. I don't think he wants, like, why do that nonsensical fight that Trump is clearly wanting and egging him onto? Why take that fight? Just let Trump do his second term, and then you'll sweep in as the second, or let Trump run and fail and fully push him out of the periphery of the public, and then you can be there. I think that's the only game plan that makes sense from his perspective, and I think he's smart enough to take those odds. I don't think Trump is smart enough to. I don't think Trump is smart enough or selfless enough to run against a Republican, knowing that would make Biden win. And I think that he's the only figure in the political sphere right now who wouldn't do that, who wouldn't be that spoiler candidate, except for Marianne Williamson, obviously.
I don't think she has an intent to actually run and win. I think sure she's a messaging candidate again, and also possibly grifting a little bit. I don't know her enough to say that she's grifting. I think that she is sincere in a lot of her beliefs.
Don't let him fool you. They hang out all the time. Cypher and Marianne. Come on. They're actually this is actually why he's here. He's about to announce a podcast that he's doing. It's called CNM. Instead of
that
CNN.
Would be dope, though. I'd love to be able to talk policy with somebody that also is spiritual. That'd be cool.
Sure. Yeah.
So I guess one other thing, since it's tangentially related to this, and then we'll probably wrap it. But so obviously we're all content creators here. I don't know, Cypher, what your particular aspiration is, but I can speak on behalf of Stax and I, mostly because I just don't allow him to have opinions. He's here for
what's up?
But like, ideally we, and I don't know if this is for you, but like, ideally this would become a full-time thing, like just being a content creator full-time. I don't want to stream all the time. This is like a weekly thing that I want to do. I've also got a pop culture channel that I'm eventually going to try to get off the ground, but everything's politics 24/7. And Stax is kind of in the same position now. He's mostly on TikTok because he just refuses to commit to YouTube, even though he needs to in terms of like any sort of financial reward.
Yeah.
But we're content creators. We're politically motivated. And I know that, like, so for example, the Wisconsin Supreme Court thing, which we mentioned in DMs, that's a big election. It's huge.
Yeah.
So I will actually be going to Milwaukee in mid-March for a weekend to canvass with Progress Libs. It's the organization Stax. I know you're at least familiar with it. Femboy Maths, Maya, she runs it. Yeah. And then I think in mid-April, I'm going to go down to Austin for that Mindfest event because Destiny's going to be debating Jack Posobiec. I'm going to try to link up with Luke Beasley. Oh, yeah, dude, absolutely. I'm hoping.
This is the first time I've heard about it. Jack Posobiec and Destiny. Yeah. That sounds insane.
They're debating at UT, right? That's where it's happening.
I think so. Yeah.
What's UT?
University of Texas, Austin.
Texas, gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. I'll send you the link. But yeah, so they're going to be on multiple panels together. The Twitter files are going to be debated, and that's a big one because I think Destiny dropped a bombshell or got a bombshell dropped because the Twitter files writers that he debated a couple of weeks ago, and one of them he's going to be debating again in Austin.
Yep.
That guy publicly admitted
he conceded. Yeah.
But he openly admitted.
Who did?
Let's let
yeah.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah. So Destiny debated two Twitter files writers.
Yeah, I watched that.
Yeah, and Leighton Woodhouse. The concession that was made was by David Zweig that they should have reached out to people for comment.
Yeah.
Even though Leighton Woodhouse contested that. That's a bombshell. The fact that the Twitter files writers did not reach out for comment and didn't even really consider it because they were getting the information from Twitter. That should have been all over mainstream news. Like, guys, don't take any of this shit seriously ever again because right here, there's no journalism.
There was no corroboration.
Right.
None. Insane from a journalist.
Not even for a comment. Yeah.
Right. So he will be debating again with Leighton Woodhouse and others, and Jack Posobiec and others. But I'm hoping Luke Beasley's in Austin. I'm hoping to meet to meet up with him. He's the David Pakman correspondent. He's got his own channel. He is like growing like wildfire. 60,000 subs. This kid was like at 10,000 this time last year. Like he has just shot up. But anyway, so for me, I'm trying to put out small video essays, news and commentary, politics, break it up, and then do this weekly stream with Stax. Stax is on TikTok putting out videos all the time. He's got 30,000 subs now on TikTok. Yeah. So he finally broke even. He finally surpassed me a little bit. But what is I know you said you were active in it, then you took a break, and now you're coming back on. So are you simul stream to Twitch and YouTube?
Yeah. So here's where I wanted this to go. When I first started my little project, it was me and 5 people that I ran a Facebook debate community with. The grand scheme of things isn't very big, but at the time, between all the groups that we were participating in, roughly 5,000 people were actively engaged.
That's awesome.
So we started I got invited to be an admin of that group. And when I got invited to be an admin, I'm like, hey, I wanted to start a podcast. You guys seem cool. Who wants to do it with me? I expected one person to say yes. Everybody said yes. But then there was tensions that caused because not everybody was on the same page of where it should go. If I were in a perfect world, this would be an actual media company where I'd have pundits and people talking about different stuff. There'd be shows like this, there'd be my show, there'd be say Context, and everybody would be like in like some sort of like co-op kind of thing where every video you view, you get your own views, but we're all one channel, so we'll split the money, like, stuff like that. That's not happening. I don't have the time for it to happen. If I had the time, I almost have the money for it to happen. It would be very tight, and I'm not willing to make that tight. So what I'm doing now is I'm wanting to try to do more long form video essays, say like an hour to 2 hours video essays when they're on YouTube, just regular old podcasts when they're on podcast streaming service. and try to just make it self-sustaining. So if I can pay an editor to edit my stuff in the way that I want, awesome. And then as long as it's self-sustaining, I'm cool.
Gotcha.
So that's where I'm at. But this was great, and I want to be able to, if I could make it full-time, great. But I don't know if I can, family and that sort of thing. Like I would have to make a good amount of money from this to make it work. And
yeah, it would have to be a true replacement income, and perhaps even then some, because insurance benefits and everything else, you know.
Yeah,
dude,
I get really good insurance.
Right.
I can make it work with less. But it would still have to be like solid middle class.
The
in terms of income.
So the other thing is, I know, like you said, Stax is looking to get more into debates with. You message Wick, right? Stax and
I have a debate with Wick and Counterpoints.
Oh snap!
Good,
yeah, good.
Yeah, within like 2-3 weeks, I think.
Well, and Cypher, he had. I think you've had multiple conversations, right, with Counterpoints at this point.
Yeah,
Cypher?
We met through Universal Discourse. Me and Tiberius, Counterpoints, and he used to have. We debated the death penalty. It was me and this other guy. I can't remember his name right now. He has. I guess.
Gotcha. But so, are you looking to be? Because are you like active in the debate sphere, or is it just like as opportunities come along?
As opportunities come along, what ended up happening was that when Dylan Burns was doing his Hippy Dippy show, I was actually cool with Danabo. Like Danabo was like, oh, this guy knows his stuff, like whatever. And he invited me on to come on consistently, in my opinion, last minute to go onto a show. And I had to turn down 3 or 4 in a row. So I stopped getting invited. That's what happened. I just had to, like, you just they're only going to invite you so many times before you stop. So that's why I'm not integrated so much. But yeah, I do debates and stuff all the time. Like I'm going to try to get on a Wick show a lot more often. So I was on it 2 weeks ago, I think.
You were on 2 weeks ago?
2 or 3 weeks ago, yeah. It was so, and then this week coming.
What was the topic?
Whether political violence rhetoric is okay or not, basically, but it ended up turning into a shit show.
Was President Sunday on that one?
No, it was V Radio, Wizzy Wick, myself, and Vivian. F Bombs was on there for all of like maybe 10 minutes, and he deuced out because he's like, I'm not going to debate people that are bad faith. So it ended up being me and Vivian Wolf versus Wizzy Wick and V Radio.
Gotcha. So you are a debater, you do debates. Do you take, so one thing I want to, so one of the things I messaged to Wick when I sent him the message the other day is that I'm now getting back into purposeful debates. Unfortunately, I'm not the sort of person that unless I'm not going to take just a position for performance sake. And I understand where there's utility in that because it can generate views and it gets you exposure and things like that. And if I don't have like a firm opinion on a thing, I won't argue it either. So like if my areas of interest are about, again, basically anti-Republican talking points and making the case for the Democratic Party as the better alternative and things like that. One of the other things that I'm really passionate about is trying to correct the record. And I tried to be the little angel on Destiny's shoulder for this, is that I feel like there's too much focus on what the online left does. And this idea, Twitter, which is the least trafficked of all the major social media platforms, this idea that because a person says a cringe thing on Twitter, that it's reflective of the mainstream left or the left that's in power. Whereas there's a much closer relationship between the online right, the mainstream right, and the right in power. So, for example, QAnon has more of a presence in the mainstream right and members of Congress of the Republican Party than somebody who thinks on Twitter that there's no biological difference between male and female.
But AOC did that TikTok dance, so obviously,
right.
True.
So I was wondering what your views on that are concerned, because I know you have to see this all the time where people, either not just Republicans and not just conservatives, but also moderates and centrists, just fixate on stupid shit coming out of the online left, like all the time.
I think
does that frustrate you?
It does frustrate me, but I also think this is truly a both sides problem. People are right now calling.
He hates hearing
No,
that.
no, I know.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
people
Go ahead,
right
make
now
your
are
case.
calling. There's some tweet that somebody put out calling Wicca Nazi. Like, come on. Destiny is a Nazi here on the online left because
For sure.
he didn't take the purist stance about trans people in sports.
Sure.
These are problems that online just generates, and especially through text, that nobody wants to be good faith. Nobody wants to give charitability because there's no incentive to. That's the biggest one. There's no incentive to. You actually incentivize to do the opposite. Two, there's so much fake stuff out there that everybody has to take you at your worst word, because if they don't, then they're going to have to give charitability to thousands of people that are actually being giant pieces of shit. And I think that's a huge problem just in general, and we have to figure out a way to fix it.
I am sympathetic to both of you guys. I'm the centrist now because I feel like you guys have kind of taken some too. There we go. Frame it correctly.
Yeah.
Because like I've been harassed on the internet for some really fucking stupid things. Like I took like a pro NATO stance, and then someone's like, "You're a Nazi," and I'm like, I literally had grandparents who died in the Holocaust, and then they put like they just put like the SS all over my face, and I was like, Jesus Christ, you guys need to fucking chill. Like this is
I'm literally Jewish.
Yeah, like you fucking crazy human beings. And then like I don't know, I've been harassed by trans people for sure because I was a cis white man who was speaking about trans issues, and they didn't even disagree with anything that I was saying, but they're like, shut the fuck up about this conversation. I'm like, no, it's a stupid take to have. Like you're not even disagreeing with what I'm saying. And like they were like harassing me and like sending me emails all the time. And like when you have reached out to such a big audience, you know, I have so many followers and so many people
7.
watching. Yeah, exactly. Like I agree that it's insane, the type of rhetoric, but we should also have the correct perspective here, which is comparatively, this doesn't matter at all. Like comparatively, the things that are being done in this country are happening on a systemic political level where this sort of like infighting means absolutely nothing. And we should try to remember that perspective very often when we have these conversations. That
in this space,
exactly.
Especially.
I'm trying to bring you two together. Yeah.
Well, no. So this is the thing, though, right? So when I talk about that sort of stuff, I'm not talking about myself. I fucking come at me. I doxed myself in a thread with 500 people trying to say that they will like kill somebody, and I'm like, bring it, bitch. Here's my address. And then somebody in that thread went and looked up the
I don't know if we're gonna hang out in Austin. If I go to Austin, I don't know if this is gonna be a thing. Like people show up. I'm gonna be
no. The point that I'm making though is that I am weird. I understand that, and I have to have that kind of thing because I know nobody's gonna do shit about anything, right? But I'm not a normal person. I'm not the person that's sitting here that's like I'm playing Hogwarts Legacy. Look at me, a woo woo, and then suddenly just gets drowned out in like people calling them an evil person. Like most people are not going to be able to deal with that, and that's the thing that we have to stop.
I agree, and that's where I'm very sympathetic towards you as well. Like we should also be critical of when the left is fucking psychos and when they're like overtaking the other people because. Josiah, here's my critique of you. Sometimes I feel like you forget how much the audience and how much normies matter in politics because unfortunately we live in a democracy and the perception of the left matters quite a bit. Yeah, exactly.
The benevolent
season means a production, comrade.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, yeah, I think that we should care so much about how our presentation works on the left, and we have to acknowledge. We are drowning people out and we are not giving anyone the benefit of the doubt. And we are screaming at them constantly. And the right, for all of its faults, is kind of fairly good at outreach when the left fails. And I want to have those conversations. No, for sure.
Yeah.
I'll do yes, but all the time. I guess what I want to say is I understand because I feel like Josiah over here kind of forgets about the population and then Cypher here forgets a little bit about how the politics influence
Oh,
Like
no,
like
for sure.
on a broad level, this doesn't matter. And that's
at the end
giving
of
you both. That's giving you neither.
I
I'm
think-
gonna push back. Okay, so
I
Simon,
agree
you
with
spoke,
Stax.
then you spoke. Now I'm gonna speak.
Go
I'm gonna
for
drop
it.
Yes.
the hammer now. Okay. Here's the thing. I actually disagree with that framing in the sense that actually no, I think the population. My case is that the population is actually on in my interpretation of things because the fringe views of the left on Twitter are not reflective of not only the Democratic Party but the mainstream people. The vast majority of Americans don't interact with Twitter. So
No, I disagree. I think you found I think that when you ask a regular person, how do you feel about the left? They're like, they're fucking crazy and they'll call Nazis. They'll call anyone Nazis, regardless if they've been on Twitter. That is the perspective of the left.
That's the perspective.
That is every conservative that I've talked to. They're like, they will shout that you're a Nazi, regardless if you just say,
just because
I support Reagan, and they're like, fucking Nazi, and I'm like, whoa,
wait a minute.
So
Again, it could be a miscommunication on my part. I think you're misunderstanding me though. I know that is the perception of the left in general, online left, offline left, mainstream left, Democratic Party, whatever. I know that is the perception of the left from conservatives, right? Yes, conservatives believe that the left is censorious, the left is socialist, the left is puritanical, all these things. What I'm saying but that is a product not of the left. That is a product of the right in
I
bad
still
faith.
disagree.
Wait a minute. That is a product of the left or the right in bad faith weaponizing the fringe left. So again, easy example. I had that J.K. Rowling conversation with Destiny, Lycan, Straighter Aid, and Pixie. Yeah. And Destiny brought up, he's like, listen, there's this one account, and you and I talked about this, where this trans person said that they have periods, and it got 50,000 likes, and that's really blah, 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 blah. And you and I had a conversation where what this person wasn't referring most likely to menstruation, but like the actual hormonal imbalance associated with, your menstruation. So anyway, but that aside, then the next week, the Daily Mail, the New York Post, Stephen Miller, Nancy Mace, a sitting member of Congress who's supposedly one of the good Republicans, one of the moderate ones, is sharing and retweeting the story of an account called the Trans Alliance or whatever, because they posted a tweet that said Aretha Franklin's Natural Woman is transphobic.
Sure.
And so it was all over Fox News. Tommy Lauren was talking about all these things. Then you dig a little bit. That account had 1,000 followers.
Sure.
It was a satirical account. It was based out of Norway, and yet it was national right-wing news. So don't tell me that the right doesn't weaponize fringe.
It doesn't.
I don't disagree.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if they weaponize it. That's the problem.
But I need to. Let's talk to the comments. Gretchen, is this a one-off, or are you really starting a regular show on Sunday mornings? This is regular. This happens every Sunday. Me and Josiah over here have this podcast. Cypher is a guest, but he's welcome anytime, so you might see him pop up again. But
yeah, whenever he's free, because it's
just to answer that comment, I got to make sure that our viewers are engaged. Okay, that's the most important thing. But
you know how Gretchen posted this comment and didn't say anything about any sort of fringe cultural position. Gretchen is reflective of the reality, guys. She didn't notice how she's not saying that there are no biological differences between.
No, I'm not. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that. Conservatives often point to the craziest people and blow them up. I am saying that every conservative or every centrist appearance of the fringe left, or anyone who's not even on the fringe, anyone who is pretty strictly on the left, their perception of that person is they don't give people the benefit of the doubt, and they kind of want to scream at them and just say, hey, you're wrong, you're a Nazi. Because I think the left actually sometimes is. In the regular, in the real world, I do think that they kind of sit on their high horse, and conservatives kind of recognize, oh, hey, we are in the minority in terms of social credit, and we are going to moderate our views quite a bit and just sort of sit down and be quiet. And weirdly, I don't know. I feel like you disagree. Go ahead.
No, I think you hit the nail on the head.
Yeah.
Sometimes. Obviously, with a political socio movement as vast as the left, which again,
sure, liberal,
neoliberal, progressive, socialist, democratic socialist, social democrat, communist, yes, you will have people legitimately saying stupid shit online and offline. There's no way.
Sure.
There is absolutely no way to stop that. But you just made the concession, as far as I'm concerned. It is a widespread perception of the left, and as far as what the left contributes to it, some of the left actually does the thing that they are widespread perceived to do.
I'm going to bite the bullet. I got a better example. I'm going to bite the bullet on this one. All white people are racist. How many liberals believe that?
Or
I have no idea. I don't know what the
how many
polling is on
minorities
that.
cannot be racist.
Oh no,
that's
how many
prevailing
say
perception.
again?
Now, how many minorities cannot be racist? Now, I think that often the difference is just communication by how we define these terms. But because we use these terms in very combative
and they're loaded
realms, they're so loaded that we don't know how to have conversations anymore and communicate to people who haven't taken 5 courses in a college class and like
even have any framing for whatsoever, because nobody understands this stuff because it's fairly new to white people.
I agree that these are only some people, okay? But I will say it swings the average, so it swings the average because it's enough people. I think it's enough.
Let me put some more context to this. Out of roughly 500 or so people I've collected on Facebook, I would say pretty much every single liberal that is on that list, and it's the majority of them, so it's like 90%, 400 or so, believes that only white people can be racist.
Sure, and that
is a crazy position to the vast majority of people, even the majority of black people. This is a liberal problem.
But I don't even think it's their positions, because I think that's a fairly defensible position if you define your terms well enough. I think that
they would, but most of these people would say that even
don't know how to have
interpersonally,
conversations, and they hear that as you are being a racist and don't know how to have these conversations, and they scream at them. And I think it's enough people. And I think that I don't want to just say these are randos on Twitter. These are everyone, because I've seen this happen in the real world so many times. This is everywhere. This is everywhere.
It's everywhere.
Okay. Yeah.
Sorry. This is everywhere. And I want to, like, a big thing that I'm doing right now on TikTok is like, hey, here's how you have conversations with people who disagree with you. Here are ways that you can communicate. Here's a way that you could code switch so you can have these conversations, because I feel like this is a realm that the left fails in the most. And this is where I want to do the most benefit with. So I understand people who are saying, no, this is a little fucked. The left does not know how to communicate their issues and does not know how to do anything but scream and badger sometimes.
Well, I certainly won't dispute that the left has messaging and rhetoric issues. I copped it at the very beginning when we were talking about, when we were talking about issues with East Palestine and things like that. I mean, we have an incredibly undisciplined messaging and rhetorical apparatus, 100%. Where I think we disagree. Maybe we can build consensus here. So let me say what I do agree with you on. I do agree that online and offline, you will find examples, even prominent examples, of people saying counterproductive things or saying true things counterproductively or saying false things counterproductively as well. Like saying false things badly, saying true things badly. And you'll find people on social media taking fringe positions and making it palatable to a wide audience, and it gets 50, 60,000 likes or whatever. Those things do exist. Those are actual legitimate examples of so-called leftists doing the very thing that you're talking about. My thesis is, though, I don't think that that's representative not only of democratic politics, but I think in most situations, the vast majority of the left as a whole, but when I say the left as a whole, I'm not just referring to online leftists, but Democratic vote. 330 million people in the United States, about 60% of those people align so-called with the so-called left politically. I don't think that's representative of the 200 million people of the United States. I think if you went up on a street somewhere and be like, hey, did you vote Democrat? And they said yes. And then you asked a follow-up question, do you think that every white person is racist? I think the vast majority of times you would hear, no, obviously not.
Agreed. But here's the thing. Sorry. Well, I will agree with you. I'll agree with you. But I think if you say, hey, did you vote for a Democrat, or did you vote for a Republican, or did you not really take a position? I think that the perspective of the left is of this. And I agree.
A perspective of the, like, you mean that is the left?
No. The perspective of most people
about
the left. About the left. Thank you. Okay. That is the correct preposition. About the left.
Right. No.
And And
But do you think? But do you think? Hang on. Do you think?
I think there's
because,
some merit. I think there's some merit.
But I'm asking you as a whole. Do you think?
Okay.
I'll agree with you. Let's just cop to it. Let's just say the perception about the left is we're puritanical, we're cringe, we're fringe, we're crazy. We believe that 5-year-olds who are transgender should have bottom surgery. All these things. Do you think that's because we, on the whole or in the majority, believe that, or do you think that's because select examples, which do legitimately exist, have been weaponized by a bad faith opposition to tar and feathers?
I don't think it's as systemic as I don't think it's as systemic. I don't think it's coming from I don't think it's just solely coming from the Republican Party. I think it's coming from normies who are just having conversations. That perception is not just something that they see on Fox News. It's something that they interact with on a daily basis.
You don't think
with real
you don't
people.
think that's because of messaging by the right wing? I don't think they're mutually exclusive.
I don't think they're mutually exclusive, but I don't think that they're I don't think they're mutually exclusive. But I want to focus where I can put my energy in, which is these people do not know how to fucking communicate.
Right. But let me ask you.
I want to care about that and I want to talk about that.
Let me ask you a different way. Do you think the normie that thinks that the left is puritanical and fringe and all that, do you think it's because they've actually seen leftists say this, or do you think it's because everyone is saying that the left says
I think it's because they've seen it. I think so.
Yeah.
And I think that's a little bit of a disagreement, and that I don't know how to resolve that. But I think the vast majority of conservatives, I've seen them interact with leftists. Like, I've been in friend groups where I know that there are progressives who agree with me and there are conservatives, and I kind of just dip out and watch, and I see them just yell at the other person. And I'm like, holy shit, you guys do not know how to communicate one bit about these political positions, because we've kind of ostracized and lived in our echo chambers. And I don't know. I feel like that is a genuine thing that is occurring, and that is not just a perception of the left that the right has.
Cypher, you were saying?
I don't even recall.
Okay. I just lost some respect for me. It's okay.
No, that's not true. I didn't have any to begin
No,
with. You can't lose what's not there. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, I was just going to give credence to what he's saying, because I've seen these debates happen all the time, and I have been unfairly labeled a certain position when I'm trying to explain how somebody else is.
Sure.
But I will say that I've gotten it from both sides. So there is this person that I interact with on a regular basis on Facebook, who I defended against a untrue accusation of racism. They were going to get quote unquote canceled, literally canceled. There were people who were threatening to like find his employer and let them know what he was saying. So I fought against that, and I let him know what was happening, so he could like not scrub his page, but set up a new one. This person has since, because of positions I have taken, went on to call me one of the crazy people that would end up getting him legitimately canceled. I think that that's the problem with online text-based media on these things, because that is where everybody's going to gravitate to, because people are naturally trying to find patterns to protect themselves, and it's a problem.
Well, believe it or not, I mean, I've also, I don't know if it's been that severe of an example, but I remember when I weighed in on Twitter right before the conversation with Destiny, Pixie, Aaron, and Lycan on Hogwarts Legacy and ethical consumption under capitalism. I publicly responded to a tweet of Pixie's about this, because it was something to the effect of, she was making the case that I don't want to misquote her, but I think it was something to the effect of, it would be unethical. You can't ethically consume Hogwarts Legacy you can't buy Hogwarts Legacy and ethically consume, something like that. And I didn't know where I stood on this, because I think in like the abstract, I don't know if ethical consumption under capitalism in the strictest sense even exists, right? I use Amazon. You could easily make the argument I'm contributing to corrupt business practices. I purchase gas for my car, which contributes to the funding of the Saudi regime, and they commit human rights abuses. I pay taxes, which fund police, which is, all these things, whatever. So I was trying to make the case, like, I think by that standard, I'm not sure where I fall on this, because I don't know if ethical consumption exists, so I don't even know if that's the relevant question to ask in a practical sense. And anyway, somebody from a guy who followed me made a comment where he was like, that I'm anti-trans, or I'm pro-J, or I'm something like that. And all I did was, it was like an extremely uncharitable interpretation. Like, it was the sort of stereotypical attacks you're talking about. And I addressed it one time. I'm not like number 1, 2, and 3. No, and blah, blah, blah. And then he said it again. And I just said, okay. And then I moved on. You know what I didn't do? I didn't take this guy and go, fucking left, this piece of shit left.
Yeah, but we're not normal.
Well, wait, but I understand that. But my point is this.
Yeah.
It was annoying. And I do agree it's a problem, because this isn't an isolated example, but at no point did I allow it to skew my perceptions about where the real problems are. And but it would have been easy to go, you know what? Fuck the fact that red states right now are passing a spate of anti-trans legislation, all these. You know what the real problem is? The real problem is uncharitable lefties on Twitter. My point is this. I'm not saying that you can't or shouldn't criticize. But not only is this not important in the grand scheme of things, or considerably less important, I don't think that guy who said that to me is reflective of the Democratic Party.
I fully agree with
Democratic voters.
I know that we fully agree, right? Because me and Cypher are saying, hey, there are some issues that are going on with the left, and yet we still identify as left, right? So we obviously agree with that. And I think what it comes down to is all three of us acknowledge, hey, there are people who are being pushed out of the left solely because they think that the left is deranged, when that should not be an indictment of an entire organization that spans 100 million people, right? We both agree. Now, I guess what you're saying is, I want to encourage these people to stop caring so much about these things. And because that shouldn't be an indictment of an entire group. You can pull out crazy people from any group. And I'm saying, I also want to reduce the average so that this happens less. I want to teach these people how to better communicate and how to have conversations with conservatives, because I feel like that's something that I excel in. So I want to reduce the average so that fewer people go on, because there are the people that you can't reach who are like, no, I just fucking hate the left. And I'm like, okay, well, maybe we can remove the amount of interactions that they have that are so negative.
I guess no, and I guess I agree with that. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that goal. I think that's a perfectly noble goal. I guess what I'm saying too is, because of how the right wing operates in bad faith, number one, I don't think that you can eliminate this problem. Because we're not
We're not. I don't think you can either.
No, I don't. That's what I mean. I don't think anybody can.
Okay.
I think that this is we're not talking about an organization. We're talking about a socio-political movement with heterodox views of hundreds of millions of people. There's no way to eliminate cringe people or cringe positions.
But there's also no way to teach people to just ignore individuals in favor of a system.
Well, that's why I think you got to have a multi-pronged approach.
Yeah,
I think there are people like you who got to say, hey, cringe leftists, shut the fuck up. And then there got to be people like me saying, hey, guy criticizing cringe leftists, do it quieter. This doesn't need to be the animated thing.
No, wait, hold on. Wait, you shouldn't. I don't even think that you should say be quieter. I think what you should say is, hey, these people don't matter. Why? Like, it's not that you're saying be quieter to me. I think that's where the conflict is happening. I think what I would rather you say is, hey, all of these people on the right, why the fuck do you care if some crazy radical person on the internet is going to say something that shouldn't change your ideas of how a government should function?
Well, when I say be quieter, I mean that this shouldn't be the crusade, I guess is my point. This is where, again, this is my tension with Destiny. Destiny spends more time complaining about cringe online lefties than anybody on the right.
Well,
that
we're
is
just taking two approaches, and both approaches are needed, right?
Yeah, he also goes to the Lion's Den directly and argue against their positions. So he's not exactly doing the whole crusade thing. That's just what you see on Twitter. He's on Pearly Thinks or whatever the hell is Marion's thing, like all the manosphere stuff.
I guess what I'm saying is, Yeah. I think that there should be a two-pronged approach. And I don't know why you're criticizing the other prong, because I feel like the other prong is just as valuable as yours.
It's needed. You have to tell people that they're being wrong when they're being wrong.
100%. I'm just saying that I don't think that should become the predominant thesis or an equal thesis.
I think they should be. No, I think they should be equal. I think they should be equal.
Wait, you think that criticizing the left should be?
I think that a self-criticism should be almost as equal as. Well, no. When we're talking very specifically, I think you pivoted the conversation just a tiny bit, and I want to put us back on track. When we are talking about people's perception of the left, I think it should be an equal pronged approach between making the left a little bit better and also telling centrists, "Hey, why the fuck do you care about these fringe figures?"
Yes, no, I would agree with that.
Okay, those can be equal.
Right. I'm saying that there are people on the left who take your prong, not only make it bigger than mine, but then make it as much, if not more, of an issue.
And I'm critical of those people too.
Yes, I'm saying.
So now we need those three prongs where now I'm critical of my own prong.
So we agree. We agree that there are three things at play.
This is getting so heady.
We agree that there are three things at play.
Yeah.
Self-awareness and policing the left from the left. Contextualizing how big of a problem this is in that it's relatively minor.
Yes.
And then standing as a unified front against the right. We do agree standing as a unified front against the right is far more important than the other two. We agree with that, right?
Yes, I agree.
Cypher, do you agree with that? Do you agree that it's more important for the left to stand in opposition to the right as opposed to arguing amongst ourselves?
Cypher's more arguing with the people in the comments.
No, I've been paying attention.
Which is good.
No, it's good. Somebody
I've been paying attention the whole time. But no, my position is that not everybody can do everything. Sure. So what you're good at should be where you fall into that line. So for somebody like me, and my wife is way more progressive than I am. She is like, when somebody says woke, they probably think my wife.
Here. I need somebody on my side of the aisle yelling at you.
She's on a trip right now, so she's not home. But she has seen me argue with right wingers who she thinks blows off completely. She's like, "Fuck those people! I don't care about them anymore." Right? Understandable. She's a woman of color. She's had her experiences. Like, completely understandable. And she's like, "No, I've seen him like debate people, and then somebody come into the comments and be like, yo, like, I never thought of it that way.
Yeah,
thank you." And that's my position. Like, that's where I'm at. That's how I approach these things. And when I come to like critiquing people on the left, it's more like where Stax is coming from. It's more like, argue better. These are the ways to like break through and things. There are going to be people you cannot reach. The 30% of the 20% of the population, you're probably not going to be able to reach because they are ideologically opposed to your ideology, even let alone existence. We can talk about, where people are with that. They're not reachable, but it's everybody that's kind of in between those two was where we're talking about, where some of this focus needs to be on. And broadly speaking, leftist, to separate lib left, the kind of how you say the left online, leftists don't do that at all. And they need to. And that's where I think all of us need to come in and be like, yo, you need to care about where these things are. Facts are on our side. No one gives a shit about facts. Everybody cares about vibes. You're not vibing right now. This is not a vibe. Stop.
Yeah. So I think a good example for me is, I don't know if do either of you follow Vosh as well?
Not too much.
I watch him to an extent.
Yeah, so obviously I'm more integrated in Destiny's thing, but one thing that I got to give Vosh credit for, so it's funny. So Destiny, I know he gets a lot of shit from the left, and it's incredibly frustrating because he is an ally of the left, whether they want to admit it or not. And this man puts his money where his mouth is. He dropped $50,000 for us to canvass in Georgia. He showed up while he was sick. He drove 6 to 8 hours while he was super sick to help contribute to it. So he financed it. He was there in person. He lent his celebrity, all these things. That's something that Hassan doesn't do. That's something that Vosh doesn't do. That's so incredibly valuable, and I respect him immensely. One thing, though, in terms of messaging that I wish Destiny would do more like Vosh is, like, right now, Vosh has been criticizing the left from the left, like with Hogwarts Legacy rhetoric, or men's issues. So this idea that the left doesn't do a good job of appealing to men or being sensitive to legitimate issues that men go through, like loneliness and suicidality and all these things. And he got a lot of shit from online leftists. And so he's been like, he had a conversation with Anna Kasparian from the Young Turks about it. He did some videos about the Hogwarts Legacy discourse. But you know, one thing that I really love that Vosh does when he does this is he makes it very clear that, again, there's no false equivalence here. Yeah. As annoying as this is, and it is a problem.
Right doesn't care about fucking men's suicidality either.
No.
Like,
and right. And basically the idea is if I were to dumb it down, like to encapsulate it, he basically says, look, I'm about to criticize the left from the left, but I want you to understand the right is worse in every possible way. And I'm not creating a false equivalence by taking my eyes for a moment off the right to criticize the left. And I want to make it very clear that that's not what I'm doing. Not only does he just hope that people make that inference, he goes out of his way to state it. Don't blow up what I'm saying about cringe leftists and their Hogwarts Legacy discourse.
Not vote for Democrats.
And not vote for Democrats. They're better in every way. They're taller, they're smarter, they're better looking, they have bigger penises, they have better policy, they're better in
Philology is on.
I guess I gotta leave the left. Am I right, boys?
Right. So what I want basically is a disclaimer.
I have a small
lads.
penis.
I just want the disclaimer. I want you to include the disclaimer that just the left is better than the right when you criticize the left from the left. That's all I want. Because I fear that this stuff is being fodder for enlightened centrists and moderates. That's what I fear. That's what I see. I see too often. I actually had a conversation on Twitter with GSU Gambit yesterday about trans issues, in the sense that he posted a clip of children at a soccer game just holding a pride flag. And his question, and it was a retweet from a conservative saying satirically, he's like, we're not coming after your kids. And then GSU Gambit, who is a self-identified leftist, he's like, guys, who thinks this is? That's what he says. He says or that he's on the left. I think he would say liberal, whatever. But he said, who on my timeline thinks this helps? And
who the no, I see your perspective. I see your perspective. It's a fucking. Hey, kids can be gay. Okay, that's all right.
GSU Gambit is like very socially conservative. Like that's what we have to admit.
This is immaterial. I understand your point, Josiah. I understand.
Well, right, and I want to show it here because I want to make the case here because this is incredibly important to me, and I think this is the real threat from a lot of online discourse. So if you look here. He's like, how many people on my timeline think this is helpful to LGBTQ? And I make this point. I think it's less harmful to LGBTQ people than all the many red states trying to restrict gender affirming care or ban it outright. And his case was, you'll see more legislation with the way the LGBTQ has begun to use kids, as in the videos. Adults can do whatever they want. But once you involve children's, when I see most Republicans react. I said, you're focused on the wrong thing. If the right weaponizes children expressing kindness and support to a marginalized group as justification to pass cruel legislation, the problem is with the right, not children or the left. So you said, very hard to disagree. Trans sports and youth, kids at Pride, puberty blockers, mastectomy in kids, changes to education from daycare. It's over very soon. Just let me get through this.
I know.
The most popular topics in the cultural are the ones that involve kids, not the things reserved for adults. It's no longer possible to argue that kids aren't a primary target. And you can believe that all these are positive movements. That's your prerogative, but you can't lie and say it's just fear mongering like times of the past. It's very hard to defend what the LGBT is doing as someone on the left. I disagree with lots of it and now have to constantly distance myself from pure idiots in every conversation nowadays. In the past, that wasn't the case. And I couldn't figure out how to respond to him because it took I was like, how am I going to do this? So I said, look, I've tried and failed to condense this, so please bear with me. I don't know what you're getting at. What relationship do you think exists between public support and kindness from kids to the LGBTQ community, as seen in this clip, and trans athletes, puberty blockers, and minor mastectomies? Does the relationship mean that kids should be discouraged or prevented from expressing support or kindness to the LGBTQ community? Should kids be encouraged to express opposition or cruelty to the LGBTQ community so as to deter trans athletes, puberty blockers, and minor mastectomies? Also, I don't know what you mean by kids are the primary target or that the GOP doesn't care what adults do. As a society, we push kids to embrace/support expanded human/civil rights, for example, immigration. And at least 2 red states are trying to push bans for adults under 21 and 26. Respectfully, I think you're falling for right-wing talking points about fringe issues and blowing rare medical treatments with extensive requirements out of proportion while glossing over the GOP's attempts to legislate their bigotry against a marginalized group. And then eventually he and I are going to have a conversation about this, I think, next week. But do you understand where I'm coming from?
I actually, the more that I saw the conversation, the more I was kind of disagreeing with you a tiny bit. I'm going to clarify just a little bit. Because I think where he's coming from is saying, hey, this isn't super helpful towards the like he's taking the prong approach where he's saying, hey, let's talk about discourse. Let's talk about the way that we communicate these ideas to another. I don't think this is super helpful. I don't think that this is the best way to do it. The way that I thought it was described is just one kid wearing like a gay t-shirt or something like that, or holding one flag like in the audience. And that was that kid's decision just because like he's gay, that kid's queer. I don't know how helpful it is to have kids marching around with a queer flag. I don't know. But he's having that conversation where he's like, I want to be talking about how we can communicate this to the average person. And you're like, he's taking that first prong, and you're taking the second prong, which is, hey, let's talk about the real political issues that are happening. But we do live in a democracy, and the other prong is important. I do think that we should care about rhetoric, and we should care about how we communicate these ideas to other people. And if he's disagreeing with that rhetoric, I think that that's fine, and that shouldn't take away from the fact that you care about public policy.
Yeah, but I don't want to speak for Gambit, so I'm not going to. I just think that there's this large section of the population that believes that kids shouldn't be involved in this whatsoever.
I agree.
And that
I agree.
We shouldn't teach them about homosexuality.
Yes.
We shouldn't teach them about queerness. And then on the right wing, we shouldn't teach them about CRT, which encompasses everything. And you can bring it down to general wokeness if you want to get
for sure.
Super.
And I don't want to speak for Gambit either, because again, we're going to have a conversation about this, and I think it may end up being a 2v2 or 3v3 because there were other people in that conversation who disagreed. So maybe one or both of you will be drafted in to have the conversation, or perhaps our friend, I'm blanking on her name now, Ella. Yeah. So, but here's my thing. The sentiment that I was reading there, I see that a lot, which is, yes, this idea that anytime children express any sort of support for trans people, they're being indoctrinated by the woke left. And that's actually the real problem. And what this does is it feeds right-wing response. The only reason that the right wing is responding legislatively is because kids are expressing public support. Yeah.
That's where I'm thinking Gambit is
we can agree with the origin. We can agree that the origin is with the right and making being very bad faith with conversations. But I think that we should also acknowledge that conservatives have kind of been indoctrinated by that, and centrists have been too, where they sort of see that kids are being indoctrinated, and we should push against that narrative. Like this is a classic example of like, I do think that sometimes minority groups, speaking as like someone who comes from like a lot of Jewish, my dad's Jewish. I kind of consider myself Jewish. I don't know. It kind of depends. But like you kind of should push against those stereotypes that like, it's kind of important. It's kind of more important. My dad has said this a bunch of times. It's kind of important for him not to be seen as greedy, to push against that more so that he can see himself, so that people don't get the wrong impression when they see him. And we can all agree, hey, where did those stereotypes come from? From deeply, deeply, deeply bigoted places, for sure. But I also think that maybe we have a responsibility to push against those stereotypes and not give into them. Does that make sense?
It does, but this is where I think Cypher was kind of articulating my view beautifully, which is, I don't know if this is the case for Gambit. So take Gambit aside. This is just what he said, and sentiments like that I've seen before. My interpretation of that from right-wingers and centrists is that, again, if there was any kid, like you said, initially you were like, well, if it was just one kid expressing support, we all know right-wing talking heads would see even that one kid just choosing.
I think it depends. No, but I don't.
No, 100%. I don't think
No. Of course, those far right figures will take anything, but I do think that the centrist matters. And I do think that there are some things, I don't think this perspective where it's like, oh, they're gonna call us this. Let's just do it anyway. There are people in the middle who will have some breaking point that's going to be different from the far right. Yeah, the far right is always
Cypher, jump on in. I'm gonna respond to that when we're done. But go ahead, Cypher. What were you saying?
So what I think it kind of boils down to, and we can separate this from right-wing people that are ideologically right-wing from the rest of the people, is that right-wing people are actively indoctrinating their children. Raising children, we can talk about what raising children actually means, but that is where their position is. So anytime anybody does anything when it comes to children, they're going to be like, well, we do it this way because we want them to be good Christian people or whatever the case may be. Right. Different countries going to have different
they push
aspects,
heteronormativity so much.
100%. And so they're going to be like, well, they're obviously doing it now. So it's not projection per se, because people on the left are doing the same thing when it comes to like raising their kids to be kind, accepting adults of, gay people and exposing them to different things. Like that example that we just brought up. Do you think the kids chose that, or were they like encouraged by their parents to do it? This is where the centrist comes into play. They're going to be like, a lot of centrist parents are going to be like, I don't think the kids had a choice there because it's a soccer game and they're parading in Iran.
Almost certainly you are correct that the kids that were encouraged or pushed to do it by adults. But this was also what I kind of got at the end. I don't understand the sanitized version of history. Like, we didn't push kids to embrace social progressive. During integration, teachers weren't being agnostic when it came to white classmates embracing their black classmates. They were told, basically pushing them to be friends and to accept them. But we do this all the time. So to me, it's like, that's where it's just a non-starter. I can't believe teachers and public education and adults are pushing kids to be more accepting of others. Motherfucker, we've done it since the beginning.
All right,
here's the difference though, and that we have to acknowledge this difference because this is going to help us talk about it. The difference when it comes to homosexuality is that for many people that is an inherent sexual thing. And so, and then this isn't just right wingers. We're talking about right wing to liberals, like, center left liberals, that this is an inherently sexual aspect of someone's being. And therefore, if we're going to talk about it with kids, it should be done in such a manner that it isn't going to quote unquote confuse them or whatever else the rhetoric may be at the time, and done at a age appropriate level, which to many people, if you're not going into middle school, it shouldn't be mentioned at all, period. And this is not something that I agree with, but it is something that we have to acknowledge that is where a lot of people are. So you have to meet them with where they are and get them to be on your side. And when absent that conversation was fine in my opinion, but like a lot of people don't do that. So this is where I come with this approach, right? So when somebody says, what age should a person know that gay people exist? I will respond, what age do people know straight people exist? You just acknowledge the existence. And how do you acknowledge that existence? Well, you just say, hey, sometimes, people form really long lasting relationships that stand the test of time or whatever else hokey shit.
However you want to describe romantic relationships.
Yeah, however you want to describe it.
Same thing that you describe it as straight. You can just say, hey, by the way, this relationship is just called a romantic one, not a straight one. And romance can happen between pretty much anyone.
Anybody in any configuration. I know it's going to piss right wingers off. I don't care. And then you start to introduce like, okay, so when does sex education start? When does sex ed start?
Right.
When should it start? That's the way I approach these things. Right. So there was a person
agree.
Though I attended a Trump event, Freedom Tour event in Austin last year in May. It's an episode, an actual podcast episode. You can find us up. And I talked to a person about this extensively. I was like, what age do you want to introduce a person to the idea that people have sex? What age is that? Because that is where the rub is going to be. And he said middle school. And so I'm like, okay, how old in middle school? And he was like 13. I'm like, that's high school. Middle school starts at the age of 11 for a lot of people.
I was in middle school in 13.
You didn't go to middle school. I don't want to hear this shit.
I actually didn't. I went to junior high.
No, he didn't go to any of that. Listen, this man has a fourth fourth education, fourth grade education.
But you get what I'm saying, right? So
no,
I think that's a beautiful
like wherever
way
you integrate, wherever you understand straight sex education is just where you teach people about gay education.
Yes,
like that's the answer. Is like
it's commensurate.
Hey, we've already had this discussion of how old people should be. We've just excluded gay people from the conversation,
right?
That's
and then for some reason,
but in
people are
some
under the
states,
impression it needs to be a more advanced age for some ridiculous reason. But no, I think you handled it perfectly.
But in some states, we don't have sex ed. And that's another thing we have to talk about, right? I'm in Texas. The sex ed here is atrocious.
Yeah.
They can't talk about condoms. Like, that's how bad it is, okay?
Right.
Yeah,
abstinence only education's pushed in a large swaths of the country. And just because not a lot of people live there doesn't mean that's not a lot of people's lived experience, right?
Yeah.
So those are both of the conversations we have to have on this. We have to approach people. Okay, you want your kid to be protected. What age is that appropriate? Okay, you don't want teachers to talk about it at all? All right, what about the people that aren't going to talk about their kids? Shouldn't they have education? And then somebody like, okay, maybe that's like how you break through on these things.
Sure.
And with somebody that's having this similar position that Gambit is, that's the way he has to be led down these paths. And then we can come to some sort of dialectical consensus on it.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see where this particular conversation with him goes, because I've never interacted with him before except offline on Destiny Stream, which is actually kind of the genesis of this. He was really chill. We had a nice conversation, but we fundamentally disagreed on to what extent fringe leftist views are emblematic of the left and to what extent the left needs to push back versus keep focusing on the right. But just the sentiment, that was just an example of something that I see quite a bit from not only conservatives, but also enlightened centrists and moderates, where the focus is basically like, see what we're making the right do. See, sure. I mean, because he basically said it there, like, you're going to see a lot more anti-trans legislation the more we try to push kids to be accepting of trans people.
That's a silly that's a silly point for sure. But I do think what is kind of fair to say is, look how many more conservatives we're going to have, the more we push these politics without knowing how to have the conversations. Does that make sense?
It does, but I also wonder, obviously it's an interesting counterfactual we can never prove, but sure. let me pitch it to you both anyway. Imagine Twitter existed in the age of the civil rights movement and integration. Mm-hmm. I could easily see a scenario where, again, conservatives and enlightened centrists would be like, oh my God, you see people cramming down, this idea of integration in kids instead of letting kids choose that thing of themselves.
I fully agree. I fully agree.
This conversation.
But here's the thing. No, but here's the thing where I disagree. Martin Luther King Jr. cared about rhetoric and how they're perceived as a populace, so much so. It wasn't just a political conversation. When he had that march in Selma, he's like, I need you guys not to fight again so that we can see videos of us getting beaten by the police where we had nothing to do with it. Because we need those centrists who will see the TV and go, oh, holy shit, I didn't realize it was that bad, and will come fly down and march with us. That is a huge crux of his conversation. It wasn't just pushing the Civil Rights Act. It was also pushing all of the centrists to actually support their beliefs and to make sure that they had the rhetoric to do so, because he was an incredible speaker.
He got
in like the weird thing about Martin Luther King Jr. is that it's not just the Civil Rights Act that he was known for. It was also the I Have a Dream speech. It was also the rhetoric. It was also how he pushed centrists to go, holy shit, I didn't realize it was this bad for people. I think that he cared about conversations.
And then he also shat on centrists.
I was about to say, you do know he also.
No, for sure, but I will too. But I think he cared.
So we agree the centrists are inferior and need to be lectured. We agree.
Yes.
Like Dr. King. Yes. Where he said, I think the biggest 100%. Problem is the white moderate.
For sure.
Yes.
For sure. But he also recognized that, hey, we probably fucking need these people, and we need to drill it into their.
I think we need them too. I want to bring them closer as I choke them a little bit. That's what I want to do.
Yes.
So here's the thing though. So we can talk about this as well. So when
you see how Cypher's playing both sides like a puppet master.
No, I'm not playing both sides.
He goes, he shit on the white centrist, which riled me up, and now he's gonna take your side. Yeah.
Yeah.
So here's the thing though, right? So we can talk about like how people reacted to the civil rights integration. We know how they acted. They reacted the exact same way that they're reacting now. They went through, they tried to ban certain subjects from being taught. They extricated themselves out of the conversation by setting up entire new school districts. That is why we are more segregated now than we were back then. Also because people decided that zip code was a good idea for funding schools.
Let's not do a more or less than. We can say we're segregated, but we're less segregated now than we were in the 60s.
As far as where people live, we are more segregated now than we were in the 60s, proximity wise. So
he's not talking about schools. Like obviously internally we're more integrated.
You're talking neighborhoods.
Neighborhoods are more segregated. Some schools are more segregated than they were because of the fact that we are more segregated on class now than we were. There's issues on this. You can go look it up.
No. I understand segregation. I'm just saying let's not say we're more segregated than we were in the 60s when it was literally just white, black.
Okay, yeah. I was talking about schools, like specifically schools, specifically neighborhoods, like not like and all this stuff was fought against in the exact same way. And so you have to talk about it and get people to understand where you're at in the exact same way that worked. And doing that is kind of things that we started talking about here. It's leading people down the rhetoric path. Rhetorical
Dude,
path.
I said rhetoric one time and I'll never get over that. Like that to this day. I'll be
I felt like I had to think about why that was wrong. I'm like, that sounds wrong, but it also sounds right.
That damn word. So anyway, lead them down rhetorically. Go ahead, Cypher. I'm sorry.
Read them down rhetorically in order for them to understand why these positions are what they should be. And some people you're just not going to be breaking through, because here's another conversation I had with somebody. This one happened in real life, and they believe that showing a pride flag is no different than showing the Knights of Columbus flag inside schools, because it is promote a certain ideology, and we shouldn't say one way or the other which one is bad or not, because we're not allowed to talk about religious things. So we shouldn't be allowed to talk about another moral doctrine when it comes to LGBT. That person, I'm never going to reach on that issue. However, you can reach them on like, okay, but you agree that bullying is wrong, right? And they're like, yes. And then I'm like, okay, so we should tell people not to bully for specific things because they're being bullied on specific issues. And they're like, sure, maybe, but I would just say bullying is wrong in general. Like, that's not going to get through to kids. You have to tell them why. You have to tell them why bullying is wrong. And he's like, and so it started to.
You did get through to him.
Maybe a little bit. I don't know.
Sure, but like that's all we kind of have to do is like, we are like, people don't get pushed. Like I think there's this weird rhetoric in the left, which is like, people don't get pushed on issues. People don't get pushed on issues quickly. That is the correct statement, right? Like you are one of those straws that will eventually break the back of like finally understanding, oh, maybe the idea of a pride flag is really just signaling, hey, I can be okay with who I am, and it's not pushing a specific agenda. And understanding that's going to be a long conversation. It's going to take a lot of different people, and you contributed your part. You were that job at that moment to push that person to understand, hey, maybe this isn't exactly a religion. Maybe these aren't exactly the most equal.
And I guess that's the thing. Like, if we're all agreeing that we take this example again of children holding a pride flag, to express public support or kindness to a marginalized group. The predicate to the conversation I had with Gambit. If what we're saying is we need to do a better job of explaining why that's a good thing, then I'm with you. What I reject categorically is what is said by the right and what is said by enlightened centrists, which is the clear implication that he was getting at is that shouldn't be done at all. It's not that we need to do a better job of explaining it. By doing that at all, we are setting the stage for anti-trans legislation. See what we made the right do. That's where my instinct to rant and rail against the enlightened centrists and the moderate steps in, because I'm with you. We have to do, as we said at the very beginning with East Palestine, we have to do a better job of selling facts and selling our message.
Yeah,
we're all in unison there. What I categorically reject is the idea that, number one, this idea that we don't push and we have never pushed kids to adopt certain moral values. We do it all the time, even from a secular perspective. And again,
For sure.
civil rights is a great example of this. Once we made that decision, our teachers, our educators didn't just leave it up in the air, hoping that these kids got along. They were pushed to do so by their authority figures.
Yeah.
Period. It wasn't left to chance like, okay, just we'll see what happens. No. It is, these are your equals. These are your friends. Push. We do it all the time. And it's a good thing. And society has advanced as a result.
Yeah.
So I categorically reject that we just can't do it. And this is feeding the right-wing talking point. And that's the thing that frustrates me about enlightened centrism. I don't like that fixation where it's like anytime the left does anything,
for sure,
it just justifies any reaction by the right. And we hear that all the time.
Yeah. So. For sure. I think one of the other things that we need to contend with, though, is a change in how people view the raising of kids that's happened since about 1980. I don't think people have actually come to terms with this much. So, Hillary Clinton or whoever it was, she always gets attributed this. I don't fucking care.
Her emails.
It takes a
Back
village. Wherever that comes from, okay, it takes a village. People don't believe that anymore. They just categorically don't. That is my child. I will raise that child how I see fit. And this is we can say this is maybe an inherently right-wing brain thing, or we can recognize that people aren't having as many kids. So their kids are more special to them, and they want their kids to not necessarily be clones of them, but they want their kids to have their values. And that is both true on the left and the right. And nobody wants to have that conversation where the school actually comes in and enforces societal values on children.
Listen, it's funny. You brought up an interesting point. So I'll say this. I've got 4 sisters and I've got 12 nieces and nephews from them. And the worst argument like I ever got into with one of my sisters was so they're conservative, and so are my brothers-in-law for the most part, to one extent or another. And one of my brothers-in-law, he and I go back and forth, just friendly banter about politics. Like he's a Trump guy and I'm a Biden guy, so he'll share memes and clips of Biden's gaffes, and I'll do the same thing with Trump and yada yada. And he's like, he'll say something about my president. He'll say that, well, my president. And I'm like, here's the thing. My president's your president's president too, shit like that. So we're going back and forth. And anyway, I can't remember exact context, but he and I were needling each other. And then I said at one point, I said, man, I can't wait for one of my nephews to turn 18 so I can register him as a Democrat. And he's like, oh, for my dead body, blah, blah, blah. So that was a private message between my brother-in-law and I. The next day I got a phone call from my sister. And she was livid. She's like, how dare you? You're not going to indoctrinate your nephew, my child, blah, blah, blah. And it turned into like this whole thing. And I'm like, he's 4. We've never had a political conversation. It was a joke. And by the way, even if you take the joke at face value, he'd be 18, an adult. Yeah. You could register whatever you want. But to your point, Cypher, about it takes the village thing. There's even a distrust among families and friends about the level of influence. You know what I mean? Like,
I do. And I like I have a niece who's raised by my sister's, is like a single mother. And I feel like I understand that so much because we're on the opposite side. And I realize how grateful it is. like how much she relies on all of us to take care of this kid and to keep tabs on each other. You can pee right now, Cypher. That's okay.
No, this is beautiful. This is damn it. No, listen. Here's what I want.
Well, my little private chat pulled up.
No. Like, I want him to switch to mobile, and while you're giving this beautiful heartfelt speech, I want to hear the trickling of him urinate.
That'd be beautiful. Please,
like the camera's like moving in while Stax is talking about this beautiful relationship.
I'm just gonna give away my.
I specifically went to private chat so it wouldn't interrupt the conversation. Here I was
being pulled up on my screen, and I was like, "What the fuck's going on with Cypher over here?"
I want that so bad now. Just hearing the waterfall in the background.
I want to hear it. I want to hear it too, but for different reasons.
Yeah, it's pure.
I don't yuck someone's yum, so it's all good.
God. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, like I, it's so cool how much, because I come from a family of 7, and like we all just kind of like help raise this kid, and like
You only have one niece, like the others. You don't.
I
I'm
have
surprised.
3 nieces.
Oh, okay.
But I'm also like older than most of them.
Gotcha.
I'm second. So, yeah, just really 3 nieces, but like one of them is like the single mother. So it's like we kind of all help take care of this guy, and we like babysit, and we like make sure that everyone understands like, hey, this is how children should be raised. And like, here's when, like, I don't know. I think that there's this really weird idea. Yeah. That like, we've kind of forgotten how to be a community and how to rely on other people. And,
well, that's the weird thing is,
Be right back.
yeah, go ahead, Cypher.
gotta-
Take your mic with you.
Please.
Yes.
Please.
So no, the weird thing is, yeah. So the weird thing is, like, our family's very, very close, and we rely on each other quite a bit. But it was the idea where the battle line was drawn, almost even just over a joke, was this idea that, okay, yeah, I can rely on you to, you know, feed my children, to protect my children, to spend time with my children, to pick them up from school, all these things, to take a bullet for them, whatever. But the idea that you would expose them to your values, which are fundamentally different from mine, even in a joke, was like, you know, I understand where you would want to protect your offspring from the ideological influence of strangers, less so educators, because I think we should trust educators somewhat. But even in family, I guess, is my point. So it's not like we're all estranged, and I, you know, joked about espousing political opinions. We're very close as a family.
Mm-hmm.
But even in that tight-knit environment, the idea that you would even jokingly expose different political opinions to, you know, nieces, nephews, whatever, that was just a non-starter. And that was kind of an eye-opener for me. I'm like, wow, when it comes to political values, political discourse, and political ideology, that distrust can infiltrate an otherwise very close relationship, you know?
Yeah, for sure. And I would, oh, damn it. It was just, he didn't bring his mic, so I was upset.
I know he didn't.
I thought he might change his mind later.
I know. I was hoping to hear again that trickle in the background, and like you would stop, and then he would stop, and then you would start speaking again, and he would start peeing again, and it would just be like this ongoing.
Gross.
Shtick. Yes. I can't believe
you said you wouldn't yuck someone's yum.
Oh, that's true. I did.
Yeah.
I did say that. Damn.
Hypocrite.
You got me.
So, yeah, that's I don't know. We'll see where that conversation goes. I hope I do. Part of me hopes it's a group discussion. American Nacho was another one who was in the. It was American Nacho. It was GSU Gambit, and it was ABBA. And I wasn't able to join the stream at the time because like there were already 9 people in the thing, and it's like capped at 9. And so by the time I was also arguing with the Twitter Files guy on Twitter and VX Bullet at the same time. Then Destiny went off stream, but they were still in the chat. So I jumped in, and eventually the conversation happened. I said, look, I said, Abba, I would like to take the opportunity at some point in the future to try to persuade you that these fringe issues that you think are emblematic of the left are actually not really. And it's more that the right wing weaponizes them in bad faith. And so then they were like, well, then ABBA was super chill, but Nacho was like, let's have the conversation now. And I'm used to just speaking off the cuff, so I tried to make the case. But anyway, it was really interesting because at one point Nacho was like, I mean, my God, the position that 8 and 10-year-old trans kids should be able to transition, even Joe Biden believes that. And I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? Mm-hmm. And so he cited this thing from a 2020 town hall in which somebody asked then candidate Biden, hey, look, I'm a mother of an 8 and a 10-year-old. One of my daughters is trans. Under the Trump administration, there were a lot of like anti-trans pushes, like the trans military ban, certain rollbacks for trans protections in the private sector, all these things. He's like, what would you do if you become president to fight that? And he was like, look, if they're executive orders, I'd repeal them the first day. And then, you know, I'd encourage other legislation. And then he gives this anecdote about when he was a kid, the first time he encountered, like he saw a gay couple, and his father, Joe Biden's father, to tell him, look, it's just 2 people in love. And basically the idea that it's not a choice and it's natural, even if it's relatively uncommon. And so then he ends it in typical Joe Biden fashion with a sentence fragment. He's like, the idea that 8 or 10-year-olds just decide one day that I'm trans and it's going to be better for me. It's going to make my life easier, and then he cuts himself off and then he moves on to something else. And he was clearly, if you watch the clip, what he was clearly saying is being trans isn't a choice. It's an identity. And if 8 or 10-year-olds identify as trans, it's not because they're picking up a fad, because it'll make their lives easier, right? Because it's probably going to make their lives a hell of a lot harder. But it was interpreted. This guy was like, see, Joe Biden supports 8 and 10-year-olds transitioning. I'm like, bro, no,
sure,
obviously not. But
at that point, you just say, yes, he does, socially speaking. And then who gives a fuck? Like, this is why I don't like having these conversations. There's this idea, like the social contagion thing is basically based on the fact that a lot of people are like playing with gender expression. And so they're calling themselves trans because they don't fit neatly into the binary. And if that's the case, then who gives a shit? Right? Like, why do you care? Sorry, I didn't mean to.
No. I agree with you, but I also feel like.
Yeah, come out, fucking Republican.
No, true.
Come out and say
no. I'm a little worried about just saying who gives a fuck instead of, hey, here's why this is beneficial, if that makes sense. Not to police your language,
yeah, of course.
Sure.
I think that's kind of the issue with the left sometimes is like, bro, like we almost like turn into libertarians instead of
we're libertarians, yeah.
And I'm like, why? Like we should say it's not just who gives a fuck. This is beneficial to the kid's understanding of self-awareness, and this can like I like maybe this is just why I personally like flinched at that. It's just like the who gives a fuck argument is so like antithetical to all of my core values, and I think conservatives they're not libertarians either. They're like, no, I care about kids and I care about community and I care about doing it. And I think arguing in favor of like, hey, this is why it's actually beneficial for kids. This is why actually they can increase their understanding of self-worth and not want to shoot themselves every time they look in a mirror. And that's a net positive for children everywhere.
Here's where I'm going to disagree just slightly. So when I say who gives a fuck, that's me being flip. Okay, so we'll
yeah.
This should be understandable.
Just
in case.
No, I understand. Don't let him fool you. If
I mean, it is my official position, but I'm being flippant
in law. Who gives HB bill? Whatever. Who gives a fuck? Yeah.
I want to know what it is that they're afraid of. So when I hear that this is bad, I want to ask why. I want them to articulate the exact reason of why they're afraid. And for the most part, it seems to me that they think that people can be, into any sort of degree, indoctrinated into being trans, or at least gender non-conforming, not fitting it neatly into the binary. And then, so if that is the case, then okay, why are you afraid of that? Are you afraid of that because you think it is morally wrong for them to do because God doesn't make mistakes or whatever the hell else it might
Except
be?
cancer and stuff like that, then that's okay.
Yeah, right.
That's okay to medically treat, by the way.
Yeah. Or is it because of you're afraid of how they will be treated and what they could do to themselves under those circumstances? If it's the latter, you can work with that easily, but you have to know why they're afraid. And I think a lot of people on the left simply ignore that.
Yeah.
Entirely.
Fully agree. Cool. I think I do got to get going soon.
We'll go ahead and call it now that you've both outed yourselves as conservatives.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my God.
That's fine.
I hate the homeless.
Yeah, I know.
I hate public housing.
We've established that Stax hates the homeless and wants more of them. We've established that Cypher thinks that President Biden is responsible for East Palestine. I think the left is perfect, apparently, and you just want to beat up the right. No, this is man. I'm glad, guys. I really am glad we did this. Cypher, I think that you bring a lot of great perspective and stuff, and it'd be great if we could figure out a way. Because I also want fresh faces. I don't know if you've ever interacted with him before. He's like a really policy-rich guy.
He used to come onto my news roundup when it was an actual thing. Gotcha. When I meant like a group thing is what I should say.
If we could figure out a way, because I know like there's the quote unquote leftist mafia that they do with like the serfs and the Rational National, a couple of others. I feel like we could be the cooler version of that. Like if we could get
we got to get some diversity in this bitch.
I know, but that's what I'm saying. But that's the thing.
No, last time I brought a trans woman, and then Ruminate just found another white fucking guy who has the same opinions and all.
I don't want to hear it. Your trans friend is actually more my friend than yours. We're bonding over Buffy at all times. She hates your guts, and she should. Okay, the disrespect that you levy at her. But I feel like we should do this fairly often. I know Stax and I are going to do our thing every Sunday, but I think we should look into that and possibly getting Fresh involved. And if you guys know conservatives. Like, because Stax and I used to do TikTok lives, and it was really fun. We'd bring people in 1, 2, 3 at a time and have conversations with people. And we wouldn't dogpile them. We'd actually have like good back and forth. We would a little bit every now and then. But we should figure out a way to do that, because it'd be nice to do that. Have sort of.
I'd love to get dialogue. I could get some conservatives on here.
Well, I mean, hell, half the time, I feel like for 3/4 of this, we disagreed on shit anyways. We spent
agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed. Yeah.
So anyway.
Agreed to disagree.
Agreed that we disagreed.
We agreed that we disagreed. Yeah. But let's do this again soon, okay?
Yeah, for sure.
Sounds good.
All right, and I'll send you all the VOD. I'll download this, and I'll throw it in a Google Drive, and I'll send you all the links. So.
Okay. Thanks so much.
Thanks to our sweeping four watchers.
Incredible.
Yeah, we'll do this again.